Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone number is 844-527-8723, and our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. We thank you all for joining us here. Please follow Joe and I on social media, on Facebook at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, on YouTube at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. More importantly, YouTube. We're trying to build up our subscriber base there. We only created the page about a month and a half ago. So if you could subscribe to us on YouTube, that would be a great help. And on any video you watch on YouTube, please hit the little like button. And just for our friends Paul and Kristen Chiach out there in Pennsylvania, I got my Angry Catholic t-shirt, okay? Thank you, Paul and Kristen, for sending it, because we're angry Catholics, okay? We're talking more about politics and culture, but nonetheless, we got a lot of things to be angry about. But we want to thank you all again for joining us. We got a great lineup for you all today. We have Tucker Carlson. He's, you got Barack Obama. I mean, the left, they just have to politicize everything. So John Lewis dies. Of course, they have to politicize his funeral. You have social distancing, that are ignored. Or the rules are being ignored by the politically woke. And the rules obviously are not applied equally. We got Facebook. We're going to be talking about Facebook and Google. They censored a viral video of a doctor or a bunch of doctors on Capitol Hill talking about things that, quite frankly, the big tech oligarchs don't like that people are talking about. So what do? They shut them down. We're going to get into that, too. We're going to talk about the buzzsaw known as our Catholic Attorney General, Bill Barr. All right. And the Democrats, CNN tried to pass off that the Democrats handled him. He handled them. Any objective person knows that. So we're going to talk about the lawless left. Dan Crenshaw had something to say about violent mobs. You had a guy, a black man, 60 years old, also in Milwaukee, I think it was, shot dead.
In the afternoon.
Shot dead in the middle of the day. Okay, where's the woke media when it comes to that guy? Does that black life matter? I don't know. You have Seattle telling residents and businesses basically you're on your own, and we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court. So as Joe and I always say, the left is teeing it up. Today's no exception. So Joe, where would you like to get started?
We got to start with a prayer, because all good things start with a prayer, and this is a good thing. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, never was it known that anyone who sought your help or sought your intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, we fly unto you, O Virgin of Virgins, our Mother. To you we come, before you we stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise our petitions, but in your clemency hear and answer us. Amen.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
So as Joe was saying, we're going to start with Tucker Carlson. He's becoming a favorite of the show. Tucker has a lot of good insights. I definitely recommend that you watch his show. So basically, as Joe alluded to, Carlson was very critical of former President Barack Obama for his political tones. He gave the eulogy for Representative John Lewis, who recently passed, and his funeral was about a week ago. Obama noted this in his eulogy, and I quote, "By ending some of the partisan gerrymandering so that all voters have the power to choose their politicians, not the other way around, and if all this takes eliminating the filibuster, another Jim Crow relic, in order to secure the God-given rights of every American, then that's what we should do." Joe, what is he talking about?
What he's
the Jim Crow relic, the filibuster.
200 years. Now, Joe and I didn't need Tucker Carlson to say this, okay? But Tucker Carlson did point out 200 years we've had the filibuster. Why? We talked about it. Did we talk about it last week on the
absolutely.
show? We talked about it. It makes for compromise, for slow-moving legislation, for people to deliberate and to debate and try to find consensus. That's why you need 60 votes, because the filibuster tells people, take a breather, relax. Your passions don't govern your reason. Let's reason about this. And, of course, what does the left do? What does Barack Obama do? At a funeral, moreover, at a funeral. And he turns around and he says, well, we need to end the filibuster.
But what does it have to do with
what does that have to do with Jim Crow?
That's my point.
It has nothing to do with Jim Crow.
This is like where he's playing on the emotions of the people. I mean, I'll be truthful with you. This guy has not 1 ounce of class.
Yes, right.
None. No class whatsoever. I mean, truthfully, that's why one of the main reasons why Trump has to win. They have to put Obama back on the shelf. The Democrats have to come to this conclusion on their own. They basically are letting Obama walk with Biden, hold his hand, go to fundraisers. Basically, he lost when it came to Clinton because she was one of his people. Now his vice president's on the platform. If he loses twice, the Democrats have to come to they have to come to the realization and basically say, he's not our guy.
Right.
Barack Obama was, as I've always said, a charismatic ideologue. He has been nothing but trouble for this country. If you ask me, all the trouble started with him. It germinated with his presidency. It has to be put to bed.
It really does. But until they're resoundingly defeated, which I'm sorry. I think that Trump is really going to win. I think that the Democrats are going to get trounced in the House and the Senate. I really do. Now, could I be completely wrong? Absolutely. I've certainly made boneheaded predictions in my life. Okay. I'm not immune from that. I just think people are and not partisan people. Okay. Not ideologues. I think the average American looks at all the left and says, I can't stand these people. No, do you really think that the average American wants to see a politicization of John Lewis's funeral? Okay,
well, it's a power grab. This
Barack
was nothing
Obama,
more than a power
that's
grab.
all it is. And Elizabeth Warren getting up there saying, we need to end the filibuster. We need to end Listen, if I was Mitch McConnell, I would grab Chuck Schumer in the back room and say, listen, Chucky, get it straight right now. If you don't pledge right now, today, that you will not do anything to end the filibuster, Mitch McConnell should say, if we win in October or in November, if we retain the Senate, I'm going to immediately move to end the filibuster. I'm going to immediately move to do that. So if you want to play this game, I'm going to make you make a bet as to whether or not Biden's going to beat Trump. Because if you do this, if you proceed along these lines, I'm telling you right now, if Trump wins and we retain the Senate, I will move to end the filibuster immediately. So that means you and I and the leadership in the Senate of the Democrats and the leadership of the Republicans need to come out and say, we pledge to not end the filibuster. It's showing them a little balls,
but
Joe. You know what I mean?
Don't they know that it's going to work against them too?
No, they don't care.
But this is what I don't understand. Their thinking is so short. It's so short because it's going to work again. You're not going to have. First of all, you may not retain the Senate. Second of all, there is going to come a time when the Republicans may have both the House and the Senate and a Republican president. It may be 2 presidents from now.
But let me cut you off real quick, only to make this point to you, because it's important, because what you're saying is spot on. A rational person would say, Republicans are going to have power at one point. What happens if they move to do away with the filibuster?
I mean.
But these are people that they show it all the time. There's clips all over YouTube of every major Democrat you see right now with a contradictory position not long ago, because they say what they need to say in the moment to get away with what they want to get away with. And they don't worry about the future, because you know what they'll do? They already have their people in the media. This is where the media comes in. The media will let them lie, and the media will let them change their position. So if you have right now, let's say Chuck Schumer and the rest of them saying, well, nothing's off the table and we might move to end the filibuster. Okay. If the Republicans did that because, let's say, they retain the Senate in November, and Mitch McConnell was to do something like that, they'll immediately change their position and they won't care one single bit. Why? Because Jim Acosta and CNN and MSNBC will let them get away with changing their position. They have the advantage. My point in this whole diatribe, they have the advantage because of their media allies to be able to lie today, okay, and get what they want today, knowing that the media will back them when they change their tune down the road. When to answer your question, the Republicans try to do the same exact thing to them.
Well, that's why, you see, they do have the media and they do have the elites in the corporations and in Hollywood, but I don't think they have the people. And that's why I think people have to see clear to this. That's why Joe and I have this show. We're helping, if you ask me, to educate and to inspire, to help people to see through the fog, because some people sadly don't see through the fog and they listen to this insanity.
Right.
And frankly, this insanity is going to take America right down the drain. It's going to flush right down the drain. These people do not care about the country as a whole. They care about the agenda. They are letting our cities burn. We're going to talk a little bit about that as the show moves forward. As Joe has said, when the beginning of this coronavirus started, they will walk over 1 million dead bodies to get Donald Trump out of office, and that is 100% true. But Joe, I want to get to exactly what Carlson said. It's a great quote.
Okay.
This is what he had to say. He said, it's hard to believe that the clip is real, talking about Obama eulogizing John Lewis, down to the clawing fake accent, Mr. Hawaii guy. Let me stop there.
Mr. Hawaii guy.
Barack Obama is from Hawaii, and he was raised by his white grandmother. I always crack up, and I love that he said this. He is not like a Southern black man.
Right, right.
And yet, this just shows such a phony that he is. And I love the fact that Carlson picked up on it.
Right.
This guy is from Hawaii.
He did that his whole
and
presidency.
It's hysterical.
Well, let me tell you about this. It's like, what are you from, Louisiana?
He tries to talk like Martin Luther King.
Right.
And I loved when Beto O'Rourke tried to pick up on it, or even what's his face, Buttigieg.
Oh yeah.
You would see like how they would try to enunciate and phrase their sentences. But that
was kind of like when Biden turned around to him and said, he's going to put y'all back in chains. Talking about Mitt Romney. It's like you sit there. And again, it's not a Republican reaction. It's not a conservative reaction. It's a normal everyman's reaction to say, are you freaking kidding me?
Look it up. Barack Obama went to a high school in Honolulu. I actually knew a lawyer who went to the same high school. It's rated, it's a top 20 high school in the country. It's a very, very, very exclusive high school. He was raised by his white grandmother. Mm-hmm. His mother abandoned him as well. His mother married a man from Malaysia.
Right.
His grandmother raised him. Why do I bring that up? He's from Hawaii. He's not from the hood. He's not a Southern black man. That accent, and I love that Carlson, he pointed it out, is crap. He's full of crap. He went to an elite high school. He then went to Columbia, and he then went to Harvard.
Right.
To be honest with you, he knows as much about the quote unquote black ghetto experience as I do.
Yeah.
As I do. He's full of crap.
He spent time in the black neighborhoods while he was a man.
It's one thing to go there, but then you go back to University of Chicago and teach elites.
Right. All he did when he went to those neighborhoods in Chicago, all he did was start to build his community organizer.
Whatever the hell that
creds, whatever that means. And he looked at every one of those black kids, girls, boys. Did he ever propose charter schools, private schools? Did he ever do anything about the education establishment or anything like that in Chicago? No, he looked at them all as what they are, pawns for his political advancement. That's what Barack Obama is. And we know that now because remember what Christ said, you will know them by their fruit. What are the fruits of his schemes and shenanigans? He's worth $200 million.
Probably more.
All right. You're no man of the people, Barack Obama. Knows you look down on black conservatives. How about these young black conservatives? Now, these kids are from the hood. All right, or somewhere close to it. When you look at some of these kids who are saying, I'm off the plantation. I'm tired of the Democrats. I'm tired of what they're talking about with abortion. I'm tired of them not giving me the choice of going to a school that I want to. Now, those kids are from the hood. But you know what? All of a sudden, those black lives don't matter. In other words, of those kids, because why? Because they're supporting Donald Trump. And you know what they say about Barack Obama? Exactly what Joe Arsenello just said. That guy's an elitist. He has nothing to do with me.
He's Mr. Hawaii. But
Mr. Hawaii.
But this is what I may have to use that later. It's so good. But this is also Carlson. He goes on. He says, but take 3 steps back. Imagine if some greasy politician showed up at your loved one's funeral and started throwing around stupid partisan talking points about Senate procedure. Can you imagine that? You would be shocked if that happened. You'd probably walk out desecrating a funeral with campaign slogans. What kind of person would do that? Mm-hmm. But Democrats in the audience didn't seem offended. They didn't blink. Mm-hmm. They cheered. It all seemed normal to them. And why would it? Political power, I love this. Political power is their religion.
Right.
It's not out of place in a church. It's what they worship. People who will politicize a funeral will do anything, and they're trying to do just that. He is 100% correct. That is their religion.
Well, if we've said on the show, they'll crawl across 1 million dead bodies for political power, just add 1,000,001. They'll crawl across John Lewis's dead body. to get to political power. They don't care. That's it. Now, John Lewis, I had, you know, I as a civil rights leader, okay, and fought for civil rights, I congratulate him. As a congressman, he was a disaster, out and out disaster. Same with Elijah Cummings, who recently passed away. I got no use for John Lewis as a congressman, nor Elijah Cummings. Did they ever vote for any pro-life legislation? Did John Lewis ever promote promote life in the black community and bringing little black babies into the world? Or 52 times, according to Michael Boris, a church militant, John Lewis voted pro-death. He voted for abortion. So again, I wouldn't politicize his funeral either way. I would pray for the man's soul and entrust him to the mercy and judgment of God. But they can't resist. They can't resist. They say, here's an opportunity. Same with COVID-19. Same with George Floyd getting killed. Just add John Lewis to the mix of things that they could politicize to get one more vote.
And that's why
it's all about getting one more vote.
That's why they have to lose. Barack Obama has to be put to pasture. The Democrats, I've said this, it's actually for their betterment. The Democrats have to come to the realization that the American people, the average man, is not for their platform. That's why they're trying to sneak it in. Joe Biden, we've said this on the show before, is the wrapping paper. They're sneaking their agenda through the tunnel, which is Joe Biden.
Right.
The American people are not interested. If they were completely transparent about their abortion position, about their LGBT radical agenda in public schools. We've covered stories in Illinois and in New Jersey. These are strong Democratic voting blocks. They're not interested in this type of platform, yet they will do it under the cover of darkness because they are ideologues.
Right.
And that is why they must lose. They have to come to the realization that this platform, the Bernie Sanders ideas, the AOC ideas, the Barack Obama ideas are losers.
Well, they need to come to that realization. I want to make we're going to move on. I got to make one more point. But you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We're on the Crusade channel, always on air, always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. And visit the chat room at crusadechannel.com/chat. So it's like you said, the problem is that you have a loyal segment of Democrats who are sane people. They're sane people, unlike the rest of them. But you got 30% of the people that in this country, 30% of the people in this country that agree with Bernie Sanders and AOC and Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg. The sane Democrats need to make it. It's their choice. It's going to come down to the choice of two groups: the sane Democrats and the conservative Republicans. If the conservative Republicans, to start with them, if they don't moderate their worship, and I mean idolatry, of the free market and understand that there's certain economic disparities that need to be addressed in this country, and that government action may need to happen to try to work that out to get blue-collar workers in the Democrat Party who are sane over to the Republican Party, then those people are going to stay on the left. So Republicans need to get away from the Mitt Romney image they have. And number two, if the Republicans do that, those middle of the road, like the Democrats for Life that we've spoken about on the show before, 22 million Democrats, self-described Democrats for Life, Kristen Day's organization, they have to be open to a Republican Party that truly embraces them. If they did that, the group you're talking about would now become the political minority. And the Republicans could form a real coalition around protecting life, protecting the family, and protecting workers and businesses at the same time so that everybody's participating in the economy. No, that's not socialism. Okay, that's not. But we want people to prosper on the working end and on the business end. Now, if that happens, these people will become irrelevant. The AOCs and the rest of them, let them die on those hills. But unless those two things happen, I think we're in for much, much more of this moving forward. Republicans need to moderate, and those sane Democrats need to accept that moderation and come into the Republican Party.
But in keeping with the Lewis funeral, obviously social distancing, the message that I get from it is clearly for the little people, because the elites at Lewis's funeral didn't care about it.
Right.
Look at the images. I invite all people, after the show, of course, to Google the images of John Lewis's funeral. There was no social distancing going on. Clearly, there's a double standard, and I want to explore that, and I think it'll make for a good conversation. The funeral for civil rights icon John Lewis is yet another example of how our elites have turned the rest of us into second-class citizens. It is also an example of what they truly believe about the risks associated with the coronavirus. Over the past few months, we have read heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story about how the left-wing government has cruelly and unnecessarily either restricted the number of mourners at funerals of loved ones or denied the right of anyone to attend a funeral, including the funeral of people's parents and spouses. Meanwhile, many of these very same left-wing government officials are encouraging, championing, and even joining countless and massive Black Lives Matter and Antifa protests. Joe, the hypocrisy is dripping.
I think a lot of what's going on with them right now, I really think they feel like they're in a position of power. Okay. Now, why do I say that? They really think they're going to win in November. Okay. I think they're wrong, but then again, who the hell am I? What they're doing, and this goes beyond what you're talking about, but what you talked about the double standard as far as social distancing and funerals. I said on the show on the Crusade channel before, my best friend's father, who I called Uncle Nicky my whole life, okay, he passed away. I couldn't go to his funeral. Imagine not being able to go to the funeral of somebody I love. I blame the church in part for that, because they shouldn't be listening to some of these orders, but I couldn't go to this man's funeral. Yet these people are able to. Now, why am I bringing this up? Everything they're doing is signaling to the American people, this is what we will do to you. We know that this is them saying, we know that you know that we are the elites. We know that, but we're here to tell you, you can't do anything about it. What do I mean by that? You have to wear masks. Well, where's your mask? Don't worry about it. Okay. You can't go to funerals. Yeah, but what about John Lewis? You don't worry about it. It's constantly softening us up to let us know, if we gain real power, this is what you're in store for. If you think you're going to point the finger at us, like I always said it was Squealer. My brother corrected me, by the way. It's not Squealer in Animal Farm. It's Napoleon is the pig. He's the one who wrote on the wall after the revolution was successful, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. He added some animals are more equal than others. That's exactly what they're doing with this, Joe. This story that you brought up, they're telling you, right to your face, by the way, right to your face, we are in charge. The rules apply to you, and they don't apply to us.
But why don't people see that?
I think they are. That's my point. I think they are.
I think they are. I'll be truthful with you. I hope so.
Joe, there's people in this world who want to be sheep. There are people in this world who I want to be a sheep too, but my only shepherd is Jesus Christ. Okay, not Donald Trump, not the United States government, certainly not Barack Obama and people on the left. Some people want to be sheep. There are people that see, I'm sorry to cut you off, Joe, but there's some people that see this action that you brought out and said, yeah, I accept that. They are the elites. They really are. They really believe these people are smarter than them. They deserve to be at a higher level than them. They deserve to have more power. And these people are perfectly willing to look at them and say, well, no, that's okay. They're the elites. They have my best interests at heart. They could do what they want. I firmly believe that.
Well, I think it's pathetic, and I'm hoping that people see through this, because that's not what America's all about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, all men are created equal.
Right.
I mean, we haven't always lived up to that as a country,
right,
but we should at least aspire to it. And this is just one of many examples since this coronavirus thing has taken its hold on America. We could list many, many examples, and we're going to actually list another one as the show moves on regarding a rally for Black Lives Matter that's supposed to take place on August 28th on the anniversary of Martin Luther King's speech in D.C. And we're going to talk about that.
What a trampling on his legacy.
But also, absolutely, because they are absolutely nothing.
They're the opposite.
Martin Luther King. And many Black people will tell you the same exact thing. But even regarding this particular piece with the funerals, they're basically telling people that we cannot go to the polls and vote. Yet they're hugging each other. They're in a church packed with people eulogizing a man. They're on the grounds of the funeral site where he was going to go and get buried. and yet we can't go and wait online and vote.
Right.
You go to Lowe's any given Saturday, the line is 20 yards long. No one's social distancing. You go to the beaches in New Jersey. You go to the boardwalk in New Jersey.
Right.
That's where we're from. Packed with people. No one's social distancing. No one. We're going to cover a story in Nevada. You can go to casinos and gamble in Nevada. No one's social distancing.
Right.
Yet I can't go and vote. This is a fundamental right given to us by this country. We are so blessed to have it. And they're trying to take it away from you because they're trying to manipulate the election.
Did you see the story where the woman was arrested for filling out 400 mail-in ballots? These people, see, Democrats, this is where Joe and I always say, please don't debate Democrats or you Republicans. Just say no to them. Just say no. They can't pass legislation on mail-in ballots without Republican support. Just say no. Don't let them get away with it. We know they want to cheat. We know that people who have died decades ago are going to be voting in Chicago and in Illinois and in Philadelphia. We know that this is going to happen. Don't let them get away with it. They're banking on their ability to cheat because they know that this guy Biden is a disaster. And they're just looking to find everything. And this is everything that they've ever had in their playbook. Dead people voting, mail-in ballots, fraud, all of it. Now, in blue states, who cares? In blue states, those blue states are like California. I don't care if dead people vote in California. California is going for Biden no matter what. But in states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota and places that Donald Trump has won or can win, Arizona, no, don't let them cheat. The states have the right to make the rules. Let's take a break. You're listening to The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello on the Crusade channel, always on air, always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Please visit Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube at The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Follow, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And if you're feeling generous, we do have a GoFundMe campaign. Support The Frontline at Joe and Joe. And that's on GoFundMe. And drop in a couple bucks, and we'll see you on the other side of the break. Welcome back to The Frontline with Joe and Joe, Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, and we are way into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone number is 844-527-8723, and our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. So we ended the last segment before the break. We were talking about the double standards, okay, going on with the left, okay, and they're atrocious, these double standards. It's like any reasonable person doesn't understand what these people are doing. So Joe's going to bring us up and give another example. It's like all these things you can't do because of coronavirus, and then all these things you can do, and it just strikes you as being a little bit politically motivated. I'm going to let Mr. Resinello explain.
Well, Black Lives Matter ignores risks to African Americans. The DC mayor ignores her own restrictions. I want to tell you a little bit about this story because I think it's very important. BLM protests haven't been curtailed by the pandemic. Despite a ban on gatherings of more than 50 people issued by the Democratic mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, BLM is organizing a massive protest that may exceed 100,000 people according to the permit application. It's billed as the March on Washington 2020, and protesters are instructed to gather at the Lincoln Memorial on August 28th, the same date and location where Martin Luther King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. 100,000 people, Joe Pacifico.
They're going to be wearing masks?
It doesn't even matter.
Are they going to be social distanced?
No.
Are they going to be forced to wear masks and social distance?
And these are the same people that said kids can't go back to school.
Right.
This is the hypocrisy. You see, this is where, again, you hear things out of de Blasio who said, well, 400 years of oppression. It's not the same.
Oh, so you could here's the thing real quick. Here's the thing. If de Blasio truly believed that people could get coronavirus and die, then his action is racist. Because what he's saying is all those black people protesting, rather than caring about them, again, assuming that what he says is true, which is not, okay, because I'm not a coronavirus believer anymore, not the way they present it anyway. So if he really knew it was true and he cared about these people, he'd say, no, I'm sorry, listen, I know that you want to protest. I understand George Floyd, everything else. Black Lives Matter, brother, Black Lives Matter. But I can't let you protest because you'll die. You'll get coronavirus and die. Is he saying that? Or does he turn around like Murphy did? Well, I couldn't imagine, that's Governor Murphy of New Jersey. I couldn't imagine telling protesters to just stay home. Why? If you're really convinced that people are going to die, please, Joe, please tell me where my logic is off.
But what happened?
If they're really convinced that people are going to die, then yes, you have to impose that on protesters.
What happened in Oklahoma when Trump had that rally?
Right. People are going to die. And believe me, Herman Cain, God rest his soul, I'm sure they're going to seize on that because Herman Cain recently passed away and he got COVID.
Because they don't care. Listen, because they don't care. Don't you understand? They don't care if you go to that rally and die. You see, what matters to them is the agenda.
You're talking about the BLM rally.
Of course.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care.
They hope 300,000 people go, and they won't care if 10% of them die.
What's important, and we're going to cover it as we move on with this story. We have a guy from Harvard who basically is saying, well, he's not saying about the death part, but he's saying the risk should be basically put aside. That it's more important that you go. You see, that he's in Harvard, he's a doctor.
Right.
He's not going to be there. You see, this is where, again, I'm hoping people see through this. They don't care about you. They care about their agenda. They care about getting Donald Trump out of office, and however they do it, they'll do it.
You're touching on a very important point because what you have amongst a lot of the rank and file in BLM and Antifa, okay, you have people, Joe, this is really scary to say. They are true believers. And what I mean by that is they're true believing Marxists. They believe, if they really believe coronavirus could kill them if they contract it, okay, they really believe that's worth, that their own life is worth the cost of the revolution. It's worth paying for the cause of La Revolución, only in the American version of it. And it's sad to say. No, I would say the same thing. I would give my life. I like to think that Christ would give me the courage if in the right moment I gave my life like the martyrs did, let's say, which, believe me when I tell you, all you good people on the Crusade channel know this, martyrdom may be coming soon to a theater near you. But I like to think in my mind, no, I would trust in Jesus Christ, that I would be saved and I will go to my death as a martyr. But that's different. These guys, they will actually give their life for a lie. And the thing is, they're so blind that they can't even see that it's a lie. They'll go to that rally, they get COVID, they drop dead on their deathbed. They probably say it was a good cause. This cause sucks, I would tell them. Your cause sucks. Not promoting Black lives, because that's a good cause. The problem is the organization Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization that has really nothing to do with Black lives. But by the way, it's all over the place now. I'm at work, the TV's on at work, right? Basketball games right on the court. Black Lives Matter.
That's why we shouldn't watch the basketball
I'm not watching. I said it before, Joe and I are diehard New York Jets fans. If they pull any of this, which they probably will, the NFL and the New York Jets in particular, I don't care if Sam Darnold takes our team to the Super Bowl. I will not watch. I don't care if we're a two-man protest on that. I will not watch the New York Jets. And I certainly am not going to watch all these others kneeling and everything else.
But even getting on with the story, because I began it by saying BLM ignores risks to African Americans. I want to explore this a little deeper. Early statistics show that cases among African Americans accounted for 42% of all virus-related deaths. The liberal media has cited this risk, believe it or not. Scientists warn that the threat to African Americans and Latinos is real. In early July, the New York Times warned of the danger to these two minority communities. And this is the quote: Black and Latino people have been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus in a widespread manner that spans the country, because many times they live in communities where they're living on top of one another, particularly in New York, in Queens, in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. Throughout hundreds of counties in urban, suburban, and rural areas, and across all age groups. That's what the paper said. And surprisingly enough, the Washington Post slammed this march, a liberal periodical.
That is surprising.
And the editorial suggests the risk is far too great. And this is what it says: no, bringing the coronavirus from all over the United States to D.C. on August 28th would endanger lives, especially lives of vulnerable people of color here. We have worked hard to reduce the impact of the coronavirus in D.C. We are trying to find safe ways for D.C. school children to engage safely and succeed with the new school year. We absolutely do not need the spike in suffering and death that would accompany this demonstration. That's a liberal paper. That's not even me.
That's somebody who actually believes that Black Lives Matter, because they don't. Whoever wrote that, whichever editor at the Washington Post, is saying, no, we can't let these people who are susceptible, a higher susceptibility to the risk of coronavirus, get together in a mass gathering like this. And to me, that does show, again, I'm not saying I believe it all, but at least the person is genuine. They're saying, if I believe that people could die from coronavirus, then no, I don't think it's a really good idea for hundreds of thousands of you to get together at this rally, because you may very well die.
And that's why, like, it basically puts an exclamation point on what we're trying to basically communicate to you. The people who are organizing this rally, the core team of BLM, the people who are behind them, who are funding them, don't care about you.
Not a lick.
There's the Washington Post. That's the Washington Post. This is not Joe and Joe. Basically saying that this is dangerous.
Right.
Ignored. Black Lives Matter, they don't care.
Well,
and this is where, again, people, please see through this message. And here, of course, there are others. And again, I alluded to it, somebody from Harvard who think differently. Get this, Joe Pasillo, this is classic. A Harvard Medical School infectious disease expert. Now, this, you'd think he's a pretty smart guy, right?
You would.
I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Renu Dillon calls the protests risky but necessary, just like working in a nursing home or a grocery store. And this is exactly what he said. Protesting against systematic injustice that is contributing directly to this pandemic is essential. He urges that people must demonstrate for the right to live, the right to breathe, the right to walk down the street without police coming at you for no reason. He won't be there.
Right.
Dr. Renu Dillon from Harvard.
He'll be tucked away up
there
in Cambridge.
Yep. He'll be in Cambridge.
That's where he's going to be. But then it's risky but necessary. But you don't actually want to have BLM enter into a debate with somebody who's going to challenge them on their Marxist views, okay, and do something intelligent like that and broadcast that over YouTube and Facebook. Why? Because they don't want debate. They don't want anybody pointing out that one of their stated goals is the destruction of the nuclear family, that they want to ram LGBT down our throat, that they're interested in one of their goals is economic equality, i.e. communism. They don't want to debate anything, because to me that would be, at least the way they're presenting it, that might be necessary. Let's debate them. You on one side, a person who, let's say for argument's sake, wants to challenge you on the other side. That would be a lot less risky and a lot more informative to the American people. But like Dr. Dillon,
yes,
Dr. Renu Dillon, he's not interested in that. They're interested in political theater. And if some people have to die, including black people, so that
most
they
of them will probably be black people.
Right. So that they can present this piece of political theater, then their attitude is fine. It's necessary to get the point across. So and by the way, if black people get corona and die that go to this rally, you know what's going to happen. Who are they going to blame? Donald Trump. Just blame Donald Trump.
It's for everything.
It's the fail safe for everything right now. Just blame Donald Trump. So every action at the end of it is just blame Donald Trump. And you're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. We're way into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Follow Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube. Please, particularly YouTube, we need to build up our subscribers. So subscribe to us there, like, subscribe, share, follow, and do all that fun stuff. Particularly share. Where are we headed next, Joe?
Well, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the doctors that were censored this week. I thought it was a very, very big story. For those who may not have heard it, if you didn't hear it, you're probably living in a cave. But we're going to talk about it in the Joe and Joe style that we always throw at you. A group of doctors claimed Americans are being deceived about the coronavirus. A video shared by Breitbart showed a press conference on Capitol Hill by America's Frontline Doctors. I think they stole our name, Joe, but I won't get into that.
We'll let them slide.
A group challenging the mainstream narrative on COVID-19. Now, again, we've been challenging the mainstream narrative, but these are doctors, okay?
Right.
And they, I think, at least have something to say with regard to science. I thought science was important, so let's get into it.
Well, they do, Joe. They do have something to say, but not really if they're not the right kind of doctor, meaning a leftist, let me just toe the party line doctor, like Fauci. Go ahead, Joe.
Dr. Simone Gold suggested there are thousands of physicians around the country who share their perspective. I find that to be interesting, and I believe him. Dr. Gold, this is what he had to say. Americans are riveted and captured by fear at the moment. We are not held down by the virus as much as we are being held down by this spider web of fear. Another doctor at this particular press conference, Dr. Stella Emanuel, trumpeted hydroxychloroquine, an experimental treatment for the virus. This is what Dr. Emanuel had to say. And the result has been the same. I put them on hydroxychloroquine. I put them on zinc. I put them on Zithromax. And they are all well. Of course, opponents of her on social media called her a fraud. One of their arguments, she's involved in a Christian ministry. What does that have to do with the fact that she's a doctor and she said that she treated 1,300 people with this mixture and it worked?
It's the same argument. Okay, we did an interview with Dr. E. Michael Jones last week, and we talked about his new book, Logos Rising. In the beginning, remember, we talked about the atheists. Okay, we talked about Harris and Hitchens and Dawkins and Dennett. And there's a reason why I'm bringing this up, because this is a tactic of the left. Okay, when it comes to those who are, forget about even Christian. If you believe in God, not a higher power, not in a deistic sense, but if you believe in God, okay, as creator of the universe, okay, if you believe in God, you are disqualified from doing science. Why do I bring up the atheists? I remember Sam Harris said one time in a debate, and this is very telling about them. He was criticizing the fact that Francis Collins at the time, I believe I have my facts correct here, was made the head of the Human Genome Project. And Sam Harris was critical because he said Francis Collins had a conversion to Christianity because he saw something on a hike one time that made him basically recognize God in nature. I forgot what the exact thing was, but what he saw is one of the things the Catholic Church teaches.
Beauty.
Is that you could see God in nature. You could see the order of the universe and everything else, okay? So that was Sam Harris saying that because Francis Collins sees order in the universe and attributes that order to an order-giving God, okay, that he's disqualified from doing science. That's the same thing that's happening to this doctor. She's a Christian. Ergo, she can't talk about hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and Zithromax. She can't talk about the fact that everybody, not 99%, everybody that she gave it to got well.
I think it was 1,300 people. And
if she's a Christian, it doesn't count.
Another thing she basically said, too, was, you know, when did Dr. Fauci, or when has Dr. Fauci put on a stethoscope and basically treated somebody? Right. This is a person that's treated, like she said, I think it was 1,300 people. Now, here's the thing. You could disagree with this. You're free to. But why did they take it down? And we're going to get to that. But before we get to that, I want to talk about this. You do realize that Donald Trump was optimistic about hydroxychloroquine months ago.
Right.
And he was mocked. He was mocked. I could remember it distinctly.
If I get COVID, the first thing I'm going to say to my doctor, if God forbid I get COVID, I hope I don't get, I'm going to say, I want a prescription for hydroxychloroquine. I've seen enough that I want that protocol. I want the zinc, I want the zithromycin, and I want the hydroxychloroquine, and I'm going to tell my doctor I want it now. I've seen enough. If the left is trying to put down this information on hydroxychloroquine and its efficacy in combating coronavirus, then that means it works.
You're probably
and that
right.
means if you get it, or I get it, or if our wives get it, I want hydroxychloroquine, and I will slam my doctor's head against the wall and knock him out and take his hand and put it and write his signature on the prescription for it if he denies me. And I'm exaggerating, but I'm getting tired of this downplaying. And again, this woman is talking about this, and what do? Rather than combat the science or criticize on a scientific level, they say, "Oh, she's a Christian."
You know, it's funny because these are not the only medical voices since this insanity has begun. You have Dr. Bob Hamilton. He's a pediatrician from Santa Monica, California, and he has been speaking very, very loudly about bringing children back to school in the fall. He was talking about the risk is minimal if it doesn't even exist. Also, if you people remember, Dr. Dan Erickson from Bakersfield, California, this was a while ago. He argued that the mandatory lockdown orders have unleashed a health crisis of their own. This is what Dr. Erickson said. He said, our suicide hotlines are up 600%. Our spousal abuse, different areas of alcoholism are all on the rise. And I actually believe that his video was taken down as well. Him and his.
Yes.
So again, what does this basically say to us? This is the finer point. And this is what I want to explore with you, Joe Pasillo, till we get to the other side of till we get to the break. When it comes to the COVID crisis, the social media giants are again deciding what counts and what is authentic science. And we're going to explore this on the other side, talking about them pulling it down. But again, we're allowing Google, we're allowing Twitter, we're allowing YouTube, we're allowing Facebook to tell us what's right and what's wrong, and they're not doctors.
No, they're not doctors. What they are is they're culture warriors.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that.
I wish people would understand that. They're not politicians. No, that's different. They're culture warriors with a lot of power and a lot of money. And one of the reasons why they hate Donald Trump is because if he gets reelected and we have a Republican Senate and a Republican House, they better watch their butt. Because we're going to talk about it sometime throughout the show about Josh Hawley. Are we going to talk about him today?
Yeah.
Talk about Josh Hawley and people like him, and Donald Trump saying that basically, why is big tech immune from other things we've done in American history? In other words, antitrust actions that the government has taken against certain corporations like Alcoa, like AT&T back in the day, and broke them up. Why does Google get a pass on that? Why does Facebook get a pass on that? These are monster corporations. They should be broken up into divisions. That's exactly what should happen. All right. And no, they don't get to retain all the shares so that what's his name, the CEO of Google gets to keep his net worth, or Jeff Bezos at Amazon. In other words, they get broken up too. See, I know conservatives don't like this kind of talk. Okay, because they grew and they grew. They grew because of good business decisions. They grew because they lied. They lied. They said they were open platforms. Google, Facebook, Twitter, all of them. They were open platforms. These are not open platforms anymore. Who are they to censor a doctor? A doctor.
Well, we might as well get into it a little bit.
Well, we got a few minutes, so you might as well.
But I mean, what Joe's talking about, obviously, again, we all probably know this. Facebook removed the video posted by Breitbart News, which was the top performing Facebook post in the world of the press conference of the frontline doctors. YouTube, which is owned by Google, and Twitter subsequently removed footage of the press conference as well. The video accumulated, get this, over 17 million views during the 8 hours it was hosted on Facebook, with over 185 concurrent viewers. And this is what Facebook had to say, Joe Pasillo. Get this. We've removed this video for sharing false information about cures and treatments for COVID-19. This is a Facebook company spokesman, Andy Stone. The company did not specify what portion of the video it ruled to be quote unquote false information, who it consulted with to make that ruling, and on what basis it was made. Who the hell is Andy Stone in Facebook?
Because what they're doing is, again, this is why we all know that this is all a bunch of BS. I do not fear COVID one bit. I know people have died from it. I do not fear COVID one single bit. If I die, I die. I've been to confession. I received Jesus in the Eucharist, and I will pray I will beg him for the forgiveness of my sins. I am not a fear. I'm not afraid of dying. Okay, I am not fearful of COVID-19 because of stuff like Joe Resino.
Well, this is what she had to say. She said the reason why people don't like Attorney General Bill Barr is because he's attempting to hold people accountable for one of the most lawless things that have been done in the history of the country, which was the Russian collusion hoax, an attempt to take down the elected president of the country, to harm international relations, and to use all the tools of the intelligence services to do this. That was a horrible thing. And Barr has said it clearly, and that's why they don't like him. She goes on. There is a large group of Democrats who are unwilling to condemn violence against federal buildings and the federal law enforcement, arson, looting. In fact, they are defending these things, and Barr is holding them accountable.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's, did you watch the hearing the other day?
I read about it. I didn't watch it.
It was the most disgusting thing. All civility and decorum, by the way, is gone in the United States Congress, both House and Senate. With the Senate, we saw that during Kavanaugh. Okay, it started with Gorsuch, but it really elevated up with the Kavanaugh hearings. In the House, this is just the latest example. They're berating this man. They basically called him a racist. I forgot the guy's name. I think he's from Georgia or Maryland. He's a black congressman. He basically told Bill Barr, "You're a racist."
That's so
okay.
Dude, Bill Barr's the smartest guy in the room.
Right. He said, because you didn't bring any black staffers with you, that's an example of systematic racism. So basically, he's calling Bill Barr a racist. They wouldn't let him talk. They kept saying, you know, this whole, by the way, let's talk about a tactic, just real quick to digress. This whole thing about answer the question yes or no. Every single person going up that the Democrat hates, anybody going up to testify in front of Congress, should basically say, if you're going to phrase your questions that way, you might as well just give a 5-minute speech and move on, because I'm not going to talk to you at all. That's what they should do. Now, Bill Barr tried to do that. He tried to answer their questions, okay, but they simply wouldn't let him. At one point, I don't want to say the word because we're Catholic, so let me try to be nicer, okay? The person who is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler. Okay, Jerry. I despise that man going back to the 90s when he was much fatter than he is now, okay? They used to have to use a hand truck to wheel him into the House of Representatives. That's how fat he was then, okay? And he was just as stupid then. All right. And he is stupid. I'm sorry. I don't care if any faithful Catholics get mad because Jerry Nadler is a stupid man. He just takes the right positions. That's why in his safe district in New York, he constantly gets reelected. Nadler wouldn't even let Bill Barr take a 5-minute break. Bill Barr said, Mr. Chairman, can we just have 5 minutes? He goes, no. And and Jim Jordan was like, that's a matter of decorum, Mr. Chairman. He said, well, no, we're almost done. And Bill Barr, I love it. He says, you know, I waited for you 45 minutes this morning, because he supposedly got into a car accident on the way to the hearing. He goes, I waited for you 45 minutes. I haven't had lunch. I can't take a 5-minute break. That's what the United States Senate and House of Representatives have become. But this guy was not being pushed around. Bill Barr was not being pushed around.
But he was talking a lot with regard to this hearing about the protests. And Barr defended the administration's crackdown on the protesters, launching assaults on federal officers sent to ensure public safety, dispelling myths perpetuated by the Democrats and legacy media. And I want to get into that. This is what Barr had to say. He said, peaceful protesters do not throw explosives into federal courthouses.
You think?
He goes on, why can't we just say violence against federal courts has to stop? Could we hear something like that? This is ludicrous, Joe.
Of course it is.
It's utter and absolute ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Do they realize, by the way, when they say the same things over and over again, they must realize that people like us, you know, they hate us and we go into the guillotine if they win the revolution. Do they realize when they say things over and over again that just how stupid it makes them look? If I had to hear one more time in that hearing, these were like that Chidrul head up from Rhode Island, Sicilian, okay, disgraziat, half Italian, whose father was a mob lawyer. If I have to hear one more time, people like him, you, Attorney General Barr, you're going to answer my questions, okay? And these were peaceful protesters. And here was the line you heard over and over. These are mothers and veterans and mayors. No, they're not, because mothers, veterans, and mayors are not throwing bombs into a federal building. But it goes against their narrative. You're going to hear that, and it's always peaceful protesters. But for every video they show, Jim Jordan showed a 9-minute video of all the violence. And he actually showed a shortened version because it put them back on their heels. I actually woke up this morning thinking about this story. It's funny because Sicilian, I call him Ciccolini, all right, because that was probably his real name was Ciccolini before his parents or grandparents changed it to Sicilene to make it more American. He showed a video of all these people that are swaying their arms, going back and forth. It was a lot of people, and these are the peaceful protesters. I'm not denying that. And they were saying, hands up, don't shoot. Hands up. And I woke up with this stupid jingle in my head that these people were doing. I was like, uh-oh, this stuff is really getting to me. But anyway, my point is, yeah, we know that there's peaceful protesters, but they're not the ones who Bill Barr is sending in the federal troops for. It's the people that are throwing those Molotov cocktails and other things into the federal building and going after federal law enforcement agents that are there to defend those courthouses, which are federal property, and they have every right to do it.
Well, it's funny because when Barr basically said that, because that's a good question, because, I mean, it's factual. It's happened. There's been violence against federal courts, and it's got to stop. Could we hear something like that? That's coming from you don't even have to be a lawyer to say that. That's coming from a rational man. You know, Nadler called the violence a myth. Mm-hmm. And then when he basically posed that, he said, we have to take a 5-minute break.
Right.
I mean, do people see through this crap? And then you have the representative from Washington State, what's her name? Pramila
Jayapal. She is by the way, she is vast. She has quickly become, she's not a member of the squad officially. Okay. It's the other 4. She is quickly becoming the most annoying person in the federal government. She is the type of woman, even for men like Joe and I, who would never put our hands on a woman. She's the type that could raise your anger to that level. But, you know, she's unique in that way.
Well, unique, that's a good word. But she basically denied that there was a takeover in downtown Seattle.
Right, but it's on TV. You can see it.
She also denied that there had been violence in the autonomous zone. By the way,
we covered that. 2
people died. I think they both were teenagers. I know one for a fact was a 19-year-old African-American boy.
Right.
So she's denying this. Again, this is like, this reminds me of, it reminds me, I think they're taking acid. That's what it reminds me. I feel like I'm at an Allman Brothers concert in 1991, but that's another story for another day. Mm-hmm. But it reminds me of like the Democratic convention when Obama was running against Romney, and basically everyone's like, the economy's great. The economy's great. We were experiencing the second worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. And they were like, I kid you not, they were like zombies. The economy's great. Like just basically hitting that soundbite.
Right.
How could you possibly deny that there was violence in Seattle?
Because like their master, Joseph Goebbels. See, they don't like Nazis, but they love Joseph Goebbels. Okay. They love guys like him. Like Joseph Goebbels, who was a master of propaganda. Okay. They take a page out of his playbook, which basically says, the bigger the lie and the more often you repeat the lie, the more people will believe it. They're not looking to convert you and me. I've told you that a million times. That's not what they're there for. They're there to work around the edges. They're trying to get the low information person who's not following this so much, who might happen to put it on, who's going to vote in November or maybe is unsure. They're trying to get those people. They are desperate to drag Joe Biden across the finish line. They need as many individuals as they can get. So liars like Jayapal and Ciccolini and all and that other again, I could call them names. A good priest told me not to do that anymore, but you know where I'm going with this. The other guy, Swalwell. Somebody call him Farty Swalwell. I'll call him that. All right, that's not bad because he actually did fart when he was on one of the news shows a few months ago. He let it rip. Guys like him, they're actors who are reading their lines, and they're doing it because they're being told we could get a certain percentage of the people who are going to vote. As long as you just keep saying, don't give in, don't give Bill Barr an inch, don't let him talk as much as you can, don't let the Republicans talk as much as you can. Just keep saying it over and over again because you just need a couple more percentage points in these swing states so that we could drag Joe Biden over the finish line. That's all this is designed to do, Joe Resinello. All this is designed to do because they know even moderate Democrats are going to look at this and say, you people are a joke. I would do it if Republicans were doing that. I'd be like, I remember, I'll give you an example. When some Republicans were calling for Obama's impeachment, I remember at the time saying to myself and screaming at the TV, no matter how much I would love Barack Obama to be impeached, stop talking about impeachment and just keep fighting the guy. Stop talking about impeachment. It ain't going to happen. So don't do it. Just keep fighting the guy. You have the power in the Senate and the House. Just keep fighting him. All right. Fight his executive orders. Just keep fighting. But stop talking about impeachment because that's senseless. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get
it. So I do apply the same standard to Republicans as I do Democrats. Okay. But if I can have that reaction when Republicans do it, remember, there are sane Democrats are out there who are doing the exact same thing. They didn't like the fact that the House impeached Donald Trump. They don't like what they're doing to a respectable man like Bill Barr. And they're going to get turned off by it. Remember something about the enthusiasm gap. Trump has vastly more enthusiasm from his base of support than Joe Biden does.
You know, what I'm getting to the point when you see stuff like this. This is just me, regular guy, listening to these lies, and that some people still support these people. These are the people you want to represent the United States of America.
Some people, yes, Joe.
It's sad.
Some people,
it really, to be honest with you, it makes me, in all honesty, I wish I didn't feel this way. I lose respect for people. Because I'll be truthful with you, if the Republicans were this disgusting, I'm not saying they're saints, but this is just outright lying.
I will say
it's disgusting. And then people, I'm getting to the point where I'm like looking at people that I know, and I'm like, you actually are going to vote for these people?
Yes.
Like,
yes, they will.
You know, but that's my point.
I know what you see, Joe.
I mean, I can't even get past it almost.
I have gotten to the point where I don't like that Hillary Clinton called us deplorable. I don't want to judge people for how they vote. Okay. I'm not going to do that. I'm not gonna hate somebody for voting Democrat. But one thing I will say is this: I am with you on this. If you support these tactics, okay, and I'm all for red meat throwing. I'm all for that. But in speeches, on the Senate floor, on the House floor, in debate, I'm all for throwing red meat. Knock yourself out. I didn't like Anthony Weiner, but I used to talk to a liberal friend of mine, loved Anthony Weiner, because he said, well, he throws the base red meat. I get it. I love that. But these tactics, if you support this in our institutions, in our governmental institutions, then no, I'm with Joe. I lack respect for you because you don't respect the decorum and the civility in a place that Newt Gingrich used to call the greatest deliberative body in the history of the world. Okay. And it is not that. If it ever was that, it is not that anymore. For the reasons that we're bringing up right now. They've taken the civility, they've thrown it in the garbage.
Picture you were that parent of that 19-year-old boy that was murdered in that autonomous zone in Seattle, which never should have existed.
Right.
It should never have been permitted, yet it was, and that boy died. He should never, ever, ever have been killed. And then you get to hear somebody say, there's been no violence there.
Right.
My head would blow off my neck.
I'll
be honest with you. My head would blow off my neck.
The same way that those young, shrill girls were yelling at Jeff Flake, getting in the elevator, about to go vote for Kavanaugh, but not in a shrill way, in a very serious way. If that was my child, I would drive to Washington, D.C. I would wait for her to come out, and I would make sure cameras are there, and I would confront her and say, My child died in that place. My child died in that place, and you said nobody died there. Does my child's life matter? Because that was a black guy, by the way. One of the victims. I'm not sure. It might have been both of them. One of the victims was a black guy. Does his life matter? Because I guess according to you, Miss Jayapal. Oh, of course, I'm racist because I said her name like that. You do know that, right? She did accuse somebody.
You're racist anyway.
I know, of course, I'm a racist. People like her, because I'm white. I'm not Italian. I'm actually white, and I hate everybody, according to people like her. But I would have said, what about that black man's life? Does that black man's life matter? Because if you could just so dismissively say that nobody's been killed there, but you know full well that a young 19-year-old black man was killed in this so-called autonomous zone, then that makes you a liar. And that makes you a contemptible person, that you would dismiss the value of that person's life. But you're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, and now we're angry. I'm wearing my Angry Catholic t-shirt today, okay, because we love the Angry Catholic. And visit them, by the way, angrycatholic.com. Paul and Kristen Chiacha, they're good people, and all you good people on the Crusade channel would really like them. But you're listening to us way in the breach again on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. And join our live chat room. The only social media out there worth actually socializing in is on crusadechannel.com/chat. So where are we headed next, Joe?
This story may kill Joe Pasillo. I'm actually scared to bring it up. He may just drop dead. I may have to call the ambulance. We're going to talk about AOC, the National Catholic Distorter, i.e. the reporter, basically said that AOC is the future of the Catholic Church. We have to talk about this.
I can't. I read this the other day. Okay. Can
Tell everybody this story. This is classic.
So now I saw this story, and I immediately sent an email to Heidi Schlumpf. I'm not making up her name. Her name is Heidi Schlumpf, and she writes for the National Catholic Distorter. By the way, all you Catholics out there, anybody listening to our voice, never, ever, ever read the National Catholic Reporter. It is not the same as the National Catholic Register, which is a good Catholic newspaper. National Catholic Reporter is a leftist rag. So she was basically saying that AOC is the future of the Catholic Church, as Joe pointed out, and she represents Catholic values. Values. Okay, that's how Miss Schlumpf would probably say it, because she's a typical liberal. Okay, she represents Catholic values. So I sent an email to Miss Schlumpf, okay? And I said, I'm one half of a podcast and radio show called The Frontline with Joe and Joe. My name is Joe Pasillo, and I'd like to know what Catholic values is AOC representing when she supports baby slaughter in the womb. You're welcome to come on our show if you're willing to discuss. I got an email back.
That's classic.
As Bill O'Reilly would say, it was pithy, okay? Because she said, Dear Joe, thanks for the offer, but I think I'll pass. Heidi, I left it there. I wanted to say, no crap, Heidi. I knew you weren't coming on our show. So anyway, but this article was ridiculous. But it's typical leftist. Again, just because she's Catholic doesn't mean she's not a rabid leftist and she doesn't use the same tactics. Go ahead.
No, basically,
some of this nonsense that this woman...
She's basically talking about an incident or an alleged incident with a representative from Florida, Ted Yoho.
Also a Roman Catholic.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Also, Mr. Yoho is a Roman Catholic.
But again, keep this in mind. AOC is a baptized Catholic. Clearly, she's not practicing based upon her platform. You can't be for the things that she's for, specifically for aggressive abortion legislation and same-sex marriage, and also be a declared socialist. We're going to get into that, and be a Catholic, practicing Catholic, but she's a baptized Catholic. So basically, this is what Schlumpf was saying. She's basically saying that supposedly Yoho verbally assaulted AOC, calling her an effing bitch. Which Yoho basically denies. So basically, this is what happens. Schlumpf likes, obviously, AOC, and she said, Ocasio-Cortez repeatedly rallied against the dehumanizing of others and instead called for treating people with respect and dignity.
I agree.
Catholic references are not surprising since she calls her a rock star millennial leader. of the left, grew up Catholic, and even wrote about how her faith influences her views on public policy such as mass incarceration.
Now, let's break it down. Let's break it down. Let's start with a few points. Number one, Catholic values, meaning treating people with dignity and respect. I agree with that. And then the obvious question to Miss Schlumpf, which she brushed me off when I asked her, what about baby slaughter? Okay, number one. Oh, let's get the Yoho thing out of the way. You remember the I Believe Her movement? I believe her. I believe her. Talking about Christine Blasey Ford during the Kavanaugh hearing. Okay, I believe him. I believe him. I believe Representative Yoho, who is a Catholic, as opposed to the lapsed Catholic or the one who claims to have grown up Catholic. Okay, I believe Mr. Yoho. He was not cursing. He cursed. He said, I cursed, but not at her. I wasn't cursing at her. I was making a statement to one of my other colleagues. She took that as he was cursing at her. That's number one. Dignity and respect. Maybe, Alexandria, you should extend that Christian and Catholic, and this goes to Ms. Schlumpf too, to babies who are about to be slaughtered in the womb, and protect them through the laws which you pass, which you vote on and you pass. So let's start with there. So dehumanizing, no one in America, not a Jew, not a black person, not a Roman Catholic, because Roman Catholics have been persecuted in America in a large degree. No group at all can claim to have been dehumanized in America more than unborn babies. That's a fact. That is a stone cold fact. So when you want to call people to not be so dehumanizing, Miss Ocasio-Cortez and Miss Schlumpf, you need to go and look in the mirror. That's number one. What's the other? Oh, mass incarceration. I'm getting tired of hearing it. Okay, like prisons are anti-Catholic. No, they're not. Okay, prisons are prisons. Are prisons in need of reform? I'm sure they are. I'm not a penologist. Okay, I don't know about prisons. All I know is this: prisons are there to punish prisoners who commit crimes. Okay, so mass incarceration or incarceration in general is not a Catholic value or anti-Catholic value. It's a needed thing. Societies need a system of justice. We need to be able to punish criminals. So, but she's going to say it's mass incarceration, which also is translated as it's racist, because that's the next logical thing they're going to say. So what else did she say? So that's another part of her Catholic values, is she wants to release everybody from prison, I'm sure.
You know what it is, Joe? A lot of this stuff is, what do we call it? Prudential judgment. Yeah, and it's touching things on the surface. I mean, we got to look deeper. I always say this, whether it's Heidi Schlumpf or AOC or whoever is a baptized Catholic. I'm assuming Heidi is a baptized Catholic working for the National Catholic Distorter. It is, the Catholic Church is what it is. You either believe it or you don't. It's not here for you to pick and choose what you believe and don't believe. Basically, what you're doing when you do that is you become God. You're God. You're saying, I believe this, I don't believe this. That's not for us to do. God said that in the garden to Adam and Eve. I basically control the tree of knowledge of the good and evil. I determine what's right and wrong. You don't. That's what that basically that tale is to basically teach us. It's not about an apple. It's about God saying the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I determine it. You could have everything else, but as far as that goes, it's me, because I'm God and I made everything. And frankly, people have to start seeing through that. Too many people, frankly, what I think people like AOC, they've never seen sanctity before. You see, you could teach people things with your mouth, with your words. You could sit in a classroom, you could read about things. It's when you see holiness in action, when you see the efficacy of the church in action, that's what changes people. And frankly, AOC, she probably was baptized. Well, she was baptized Catholic, but my bet is she hasn't seen a good example, because if she did, I would bet she would think differently.
Right. No, she spent too much time listening to her leftist professors and spent too much time in New York City behind the bar listening to all her liberal customers. I mean, it's just the way it is. This woman doesn't have an original thought. She's an actor. She's an actress. We said that before on the show. Not disparaging. She's a very good actress when she has lines. And these are some of her lines. They wrote a paragraph about this whole thing. They concocted this thing about Ted Yoho that we're going to pick up on in the next segment. But you're listening to the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, and we are way in the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone numbers 844-527-8723, and our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Please follow Joe and I on Facebook, YouTube, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you on the other side of the break. I'll send. Welcome back, everyone, to the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, and we are way in the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Join us in the live chat room. The only social media out there worth actually socializing in is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. So we were talking before the break about AOC. I want to get into a couple things because Heidi Schlump, who calls herself I'm sure she considers herself a practicing Catholic, or would think we're judgmental for even questioning whether or not she's a practicing Catholic. Okay. I don't like her language, Joe Resinello. I don't. And I'm going to tell you why. You know, we point out people and we point out their words and their actions. Joe and I go out of our way to not calumniate anybody, don't libel anybody, we don't slander anybody. But if somebody's stupid, we call what they say stupid. All right. And we describe that person as stupid when they act so. Okay. But here's the thing. We back up what we say on the show. And if you want to disagree with us, you could disagree with us. But what I would say is this. Listen to Schlump's language, and you tell me what you think about this, Joe Resinello. Republican Representative Yoho, who is Catholic, who describes himself, now these are Schlump's words, who describes himself as pro-life, has received an A rating, catch this, from the anti-abortion Susan B. Anthony list. Stop right there. Catholics don't describe pro-life people as anti-abortion. That's a leftist that describes Catholics as anti-abortion. You know what I'm saying? No, it's because they call them anti-choice or they're anti-abortion. No, you as a Catholic should extend that to Representative Yoho and call him pro-life. But you didn't do that because you're a leftist, Miss Schlump. That's what you are. So you toe the leftist line and you try to disparage this guy to make it seem like he is against women because he's anti-abortion. No, he's pro-life. Yes, which means he's anti-abortion. Pro-life. That's number one. But here's the thing. Then sets up a straw man. But he has voted consistently to protect the lives of the unborn and defended the Trump administration's pro-life regulatory efforts from pro-abortion attacks to prohibit their implementation. Catch this. Catch this, and I want to know what you have to say about this, Joe. He also has received an A rating from the National Rifle Association. Why does she put those in the same paragraph? Because she's got to equate
guns
with guns. If you're pro-life,
you can't be
pro-gun. You see what she's trying to do? Now, I'm not arguing the point with Ms. Schlump, but Ms. Schlump is a leftist first because she's towing the leftist line. So she's backing up AOC and her Catholic values by trying to disparage Representative Yoho and his authentic Catholic values. So the last time I checked, according to the Catholic Church, not only do I have the right, but I have the moral obligation to defend myself and my family against attacks. An obligation to do so. Well, and it might involve a gun.
Let's talk about AOC for a minute.
Okay.
I mean, she's a baptized Catholic, and we have to pray for her. Frankly, we should all be praying for her. We should pray for all Catholics that don't believe what the church teaches. And clearly, she doesn't believe what the church teaches, and I can illustrate that. She is an abortion advocate. She is for a radical abortion platform that is for killing children up until the moment of birth.
Right.
That is on the Democratic platform.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just basically turn the other cheek to that if you're Catholic. That's a disqualifier. We've talked about that. She is also for same-sex marriage. Both of them have been declared by the bishops intrinsic evils. You cannot be a practicing Catholic and vote for that. I'm not the only person that says that either. There are other bishops. There are good bishops, and they have said that. Also, AOC is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. You cannot be a socialist and be a Catholic.
Yeah, Miss Schlump, listen, that goes back to a pope I'm sure you have no time for. His name was Pope Leo XIII, repeated 40 years later by Pope Pius XI, and repeated 50 years after that by Pope St. John Paul II. Socialism is condemned by the Catholic Church. It doesn't matter what you and Michael Sean Winters and the rest of the National Catholic Distorter have to say. Socialism is condemned. It is antithetical to the Catholic Church and to the Catholic faith. Does it recognize God, number one, because systematic atheism is part of, don't give me the communist light. It's socialism and communism. Socialism is atheism. That's what it is, number one. Number two, it doesn't respect the dignity of work. Okay, you say it does because you say all workers are equal. But I don't know if you're in the workforce or not, Ms. Schlump. Joe and I are. All workers are not equal. And not all workers deserve the same pay because not all workers do the same work. That's number two. Number three, private property, which socialists and communists like you don't respect. You don't respect or recognize the right to private property. But guess who does? The church. You know who else does? God. Because God gave Moses a commandment that said, thou shalt not steal. That means what someone might steal belongs, is the private property of someone else. It's called a mortal sin and a violation of the natural law and the moral law. So get it straight, Miss Schlump. Socialism has been condemned.
And also,
for the last 150 years, it's been condemned.
What does socialism do? The state basically replaces the church. Ultimately, the voice of the state replaces the voice of the no-no. I mean, again, Catholicism is painting by numbers. Heidi, I don't understand it. Maybe I'm just a simpleton, but it's written down. It's like the Constitution. It's written down. It's not for you to rewrite. There's a process to rewrite the Constitution. It's called the system, and you have to put it through the system. It's not for an individual to do that. It's the same thing with the Catholic Church. It's not for you to interpret. It's not our church. It's Christ's church. You see, the Mass is not about you. It's about Jesus. It's about Jesus.
About Jesus.
And that's true.
Like Father Carapi used to say. I'm sure you hate Father Carapi too.
It's not about you. And it's not for you to rewrite. You see, I don't understand that. Well, for the life of me, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Your question with a question. What is the first sin? What is the first sin? The root of all other sins?
Pride.
Pride. And that's exactly what it is. When you think you could change church teaching and church doctrine to suit a political ideology, you are prideful. See, I don't change church teaching. And when the church expands on doctrine or doctrine develops, I have to listen to the church. Okay. When certain men and women in the church, both in the hierarchy and the laity, women in the laity, want to try to change church teaching, Joe and I recognize it for what it is. You want to change church teaching, change church doctrine. Why? Because you're so prideful. People like you and Michael Sean Winters and cohorts of yours like Father James Martin, who think that you could change Catholic teaching to suit your political ideology. And you cannot. And no matter how many times you say it, Representative Ocasio-Cortez is not just a terrible example of what a Catholic should be. She's no example of what a Catholic should be. But she's not even a practicing Catholic.
But the thing is, she creates, and this is why, one of the reasons why Joe and I we do the show for many reasons. We want to educate, we want to inspire. She creates scandal. And what do I mean by that? She's a public figure. You see, I'm not a public figure. So if I say something, I mean, we do have a platform, so I do have to watch what I say, frankly, especially when it comes to church teaching. I should be correct. And I like to think, and I think for the most part, I mean, I didn't go to the Gregorian, but I think for the most part, we say, no.
I thought you sojourned over to Rome there.
I went to Harvard on the Hudson.
Yeah.
But what's it called? I mean, we have to watch what we say because there's a platform, but I'm still not like, I'm not a congressman, I'm not a senator, I'm not the president, I'm not on the Supreme Court, I'm not a governor. You have a platform and you're creating scandal because you're a baptized Catholic, and the church should address this because what happens, there's a canon for that. I think it's, I'm not sure off the top of my head, it could be 12.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a canon. I
can
can find it. I've noted it on this show in the past. I'd have to look it up. But the point is, they're basically sowing confusion because there are people, let's be honest, there are many people who go to the church, Catholic Church, they've been born Catholic, they go to church, they don't read encyclicals, they didn't read the catechism, and frankly, many of them had been catechized poorly. Mm-hmm. So they hear somebody like AOC, or they hear somebody like Joe Biden, and they see bad behavior mm-hmm. or bad policy, and they think that that is basically the way it is.
Well, that's a lot, in large part, that's due to a lot of the bishops that don't speak up. They don't speak up about and basically, I'm not saying you even have to excommunicate people, even though that would be good in some cases. All right, just tell them to shut up, whether they'll listen or not. Why don't you just show the rest of the people out there that you're making a statement? I'll give you an example. Janine Gramnick, Sister Janine, sister. Some of these nuns, they're enough to make your brains explode, as my mother would say. Sister Janine Gramnick, she's all for LGBT. She thinks abortion is
but you can't
acceptable.
See,
no,
I don't get that.
But the church did come down on her and told her she is not to engage in LGBT ministry. Her, and I forgot who it was. There was a priest involved with her. This is back in the late 90s. What did they do? They turned around and said, kick rocks. We don't care. And they keep doing it. Now, my point is this. But at least the church made a statement. At least you could see a statement by the church to say, that it's public, and the faithful see it and they say, well, the church came out and said, now whether these people listen, now in that case, should they be excommunicated? That's going to be up to the church. But at least they made a statement. When are you going to turn around with some of these people like the National Catholic Reporter? I think they have been told, by the way, take the name Catholic out of your masthead. Take it off the title. You are not Catholic. They don't listen. But at least some are saying something. But like you said, this causes scandal. In other words, for the rest of us, and people like Schlump, in other words, supporting this. And again, it's so we are deplorable people, according to Hillary Clinton. I'm sure Ms. Schlump thinks we're deplorable. She's not deplorable when she takes the side and the positions of a radical in the government, okay, who pretends, I guess she gets ashes. I think AOC's gotten ashes. She pretends to be Catholic, and you disparage a faithful Catholic like Representative Yoho to suit a political ideology. Who's deplorable, Ms. Schlump? I think you are.
No,
I think you're deplorable.
I think it's important, and that's why this station exists, to basically educate and inspire. That's why Joe and I, our show, The Frontline with Joe and Joe, to educate and inspire. That's why Catholics who have read, who have been fully catechized, have to basically speak the truth and speak it boldly. You basically have to clear up many of these lies because it's a lot of confusion. Yes. And a lot of people, like I said, you see someone like Joe Biden who says, what did he say? He has an avocation in theology. You get that? Yeah, I mean, like, he's playing to a Catholic base. Basically, it's not a deep, when I say deep Catholic base, a lot of the people who are going to vote for Joe Biden who are Catholic, they either don't know their faith or don't care about it. But he's playing to them, and you have to see through that. And frankly, this is where we, as Catholics, particularly Catholic men, have to stand up and say the truth. Say it with charity, say it kindly, but say it. You see, people have to address the AOCs of the world. We have to address Heidi Schlump and basically say, Heidi, how could you say that this woman is the future of the Catholic Church as she is now? Maybe she will be the future of the Catholic Church.
But she won't hold these positions if she
is. Exactly. Maybe she'll have a conversion. You know, we pray for her. We hope that she has that conversion, just like Madonna. She's a baptized Catholic. Do you know how many hearts would change if Madonna converted to the Catholic Church?
Father Benedict Rochelle prayed for her every night.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to pray. We can't get lost in that. You see, that's the problem. Sometimes we get wrapped up into, like, basically the debate, into the politic. We have to see her as she is. A good priest told me this once. He said, he was a Franciscan. He lived in a bad, neighborhood in New York City, and there was this Irish girl who used to come to the door. She was a prostitute, and she was all beat up and like in bad shape. And every time she came to the door, he said he used to see her because he assumed she was Catholic because she was Irish, and most Catholics are baptized. He would see her at her first communion in his head. You see, that's how God sees us. He sees AOC as that little girl, like your daughter or your sister. Something clearly went wrong there. I don't know what. I mean, I have lifelong friends. I have friends. I'm 50 years old. I grew up in this area, and I'm still in this area. I went away to college. I came back. I know guys since we were kids, and I've seen things happen in their life, divorces, different events, and I've seen how it's warped them, particularly divorce. I've seen this firsthand. And my friends that have gone through it, and many of them did, it changed them. You see, something happened to this woman. I don't know what, but it changed her. Maybe she never had a shot. My point is, we have to pray for her.
Of course.
And also charity is speaking the truth, speaking it kindly, but speaking it clearly. And what we're saying to you, Ms. Schlump, is you cannot be a practicing Catholic if you're for abortion. You cannot be a self-proclaimed socialist and say you're a practicing Catholic.
Right.
You cannot be a person who votes for someone who supports same-sex marriage. This is not a Catholic idea. And frankly, these are disqualifiers.
I agree. I
can't say it any clearer.
And one thing about, let's say, in those, when you look at people like this, they would disparage guys like us and say, well, we're being political ideologues, when obviously anybody, especially the people on the Crusade channel, know Joe and I take unpopular opinions with the right, because we're not political ideologues. We're Roman Catholics who look at each individual issue through the lens of from a Roman Catholic man's point of view. Okay. Whereas people like the people at the National Catholic Reporter, in order to be they've twisted every leftist social and political policy and economic policy. They've twisted it and distorted it to supposedly fit in with Catholic teaching. But then who are the ideologues? They are the ideologues, because then all of a sudden the political position that they take now becomes a matter of religion. See what I'm saying? Whereas for us, we say, well, the policy and, especially on moral issues, has to fit along with Catholic teaching, and also those things that are under our prudential judgment.
Didn't we begin the show with Carlson? He said that. He said because politics is their religion.
Right, politics is their religion. I'm going to give you a perfect example, but also because before we go to a break, I want to let the Crusade Channel audience, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. I want to make this point about this story because I've been meaning to say this for a long time. I've said this to people in conversation. Let's talk about taxes real quick. Please get out of your head that the more you pay in taxes, the more moral or compassionate you are. In fact, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Heidi Schlump in this article said, now this is one of her criticisms of Representative Yoho. Yoho voted for Trump's tax cuts in 2017. Is that a disqualifier? Because he voted for tax cuts? Because what does the left do? They tell you not to measure compassion the way Jesus told us, which is you feed the poor. You clothe the naked. You're the one supposed to give water to the thirsty. You're the one who's supposed to feed the hungry. You are supposed to visit the imprisoned. He didn't say anything about how much money I pay in taxes to the government. He places the demand on you as an individual and as a family to do the will of the Father. What does the left do? If you're not willing, and that, by the way, that's my measure. Like if I can measure the amount of compassion and love and mercy that an individual has, I look at, like you always say, I look at their works. What do you do, okay, to feed the poor and do all these things? The left and people like Ms. Schlump, and she's saying this with her criticism of Representative Yoho and is voting for Trump's tax cuts. If you vote for tax cuts, you're not a moral or compassionate person. That's what she's really saying.
But don't our taxes support Planned Parenthood?
Well, of course. And don't our taxes support a whole bunch of things that Ms. Schlump would be against. But my point is that don't tell me, Ms. Schlump, that my compassion and my love for the poor depends on how much money I'm supposed to let the federal government rob. Yes, rob from my paycheck, because they confiscate your wealth. They steal your labor, and you and people like you at the National Catholic Reporter, you try to make it seem like that's a measure of my lack of compassion, because I tell the government you can't have it, or moreover, I don't want you to have it. So I'm tired of this idea that we measure compassion and love for the poor through how much money we're willing to pay in taxes. It's a complete and utter lie, and people should not be bullied by that argument.
Well, I think that was a very good conversation, actually.
Well, they need to have this pointed out to them. And a lot of Catholics who listen, or who might even give an ear to the National Catholic Reporter, please don't listen to them. And that comes to you from the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Join us in the live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, which is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. So we got about 5 minutes before the break. Joe, where do you want to head from here?
I want to talk a little bit about Dan Crenshaw, because he said something and he gets it. He absolutely gets it, and I want to communicate. Dan Crenshaw is a representative from Texas. He's the dude with the eye patch. Love the eye patch.
Don't want to run into him in a dark alley.
He's a vet, right?
Yeah. He lost his eye in combat, I believe. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. I want to bring the eye patch back. And I think Dan Crenshaw is the guy to do it.
Let's start a movement of Catholic men. And the distinguishing feature is not our shirts.
It's the eye patch.
It's the eye patch.
Love it.
And
I love Dan.
And the eye patch has a Vatican flag on it.
Love it.
No.
I'm all about it. Anyway, Dan Crenshaw, he basically had something to say about the mobs. And basically he said, and I want to read it to you, and I want to basically reflect on it because I think it's spot on. He basically said, violent mobs are holding America hostage by saying they'll terrorize cities if they aren't given power. Exactly, Dan. Exactly. And I want to read you the exact quote, and I think we'll have a good conversation. This is what he had to say. He said, I think fundamentally what we're seeing is a hostage crisis. You have a lot of violent left-wing mobs, Antifa mobs, saying that if you don't give us power, if you don't give our political wing, the Democratic Party, power, we're going to keep terrorizing your cities.
That sounds like an American idea to me.
Now, why do I say that their political wing is the Democratic Party? Now, again, this is Dan, not me. He says, well, because I find it interesting that the Democrats cannot, for the life of them, condemn Antifa and these violent mobs. He added, how do I know that they just want power? Because normally protesters have some kind of demand, right? There's something that would stop their protest, maybe a policy change. But that never happens. Even when Portland defunds the police, it doesn't stop the mob.
The violence got worse.
They continue because it's power that they're after. Dan, you get it.
You've been watching the front line with Joe and Joe. With Joe and Joe Arsenault. It's all about power, baby. No, who do you want that power over you? I talk to moderate people and independent people all the time when they're kind of like aloof on some of the means by which the left tries to gain power. They try to gain power through the education system. They try to gain power through ramming LGBT down your throat. They gain all sorts of power, and you give it to them. I do too, to a degree. We're trying to figure out ways to combat them, not put money in Hollywood's pocket, not try to watch where we spend our money. But it's the person sitting on the fence that gives them their power, because that same person sitting on the fence wouldn't want these people to be in power. But as soon as any of those people say, well, you need to go along with LGBT, you need to go along with abortion, you got to be pro-choice, you got to be willing to pay higher taxes. As soon as that person disagrees, they go in the chopping block too. I wish they wouldn't wait. Here was what I was thinking. Please. It's a plea that Joe and I are making to the American people. Barack Obama told you in 2008, before the election, we're going to fundamentally transform the United States of America.
He meant it.
He meant it, and he did it, and people did. They voted him in, and 70% of the American people, with his major piece of legislation, Obamacare, 70% of the American people were against Obamacare. And they went ahead and did it anyway. But I tell all you people that voted for him, okay, and who are about to go vote for Joe Biden because you're in the middle, okay, why do you have to give them 2 years to wreck this country? Because the American people obviously woke up in 2010 and realized they had buyer's remorse. So at the very least they did, they kept Obama in there for another 6 years. But my point is, or he served 6 years after that, and they reelected him. But at least they put a check on his power. Why do you have to give this to them when you know already what they're going to do? We just covered AOC. We've been covering their Unity Task Force and all the things they're going to do. Why would you even think about giving them 2 years? Because I promise you, 2 years of Joe Biden, AOC, the squad, Barack Obama, Tom Perez, and all of them. Okay, 2 years of that, the Republicans might have a supermajority in the Senate and have a supermajority in the House. That's how disgusting these people are going to get. If you give them power, what we're saying is don't even give them the first 2 years. At least with Trump, you know what you get, and not for anything. He's been a pretty good president, whether you like him personally or not like him personally. He's been a pretty good president with the fact that they've been throwing the kitchen sink at this guy.
But Dan gets it.
And Dan Crenshaw gets it too.
Because the thing is about Dan, he's basically saying that they're bullies. The mob is a tool of the Democratic Party.
Stop right there. Let's take a break. Okay, so you're talking. We're going to pick this up. We're going to pick this up on the other side of the break. You're with the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. We're way into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. And come into the chat room and chat around a little bit at the only social media that's worth actually socializing in. That's crusadechannel.com/chat. We'll see you on the other side of the break. Welcome back, everyone, to the front line with Joe and Joe, Joe Pillow and Joe Resinello, and we are deep into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone number is 844-527-8723, and our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Please follow Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube. You can get us at the front line with Joe and Joe. Follow, like, subscribe, share. Please, most importantly, share. Well, it's actually all important. So make sure you do all of that. And we do have a GoFundMe campaign, an ongoing GoFundMe campaign. You can find us on that website, GoFundMe, at Support the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Most importantly, please, aside from financially, please keep us in your prayers. That type of support is always needed. So now we ended the last segment, and we were talking about Dan Crenshaw, who obviously gets it when it comes to the political power that's trying to be gained by the left by basically threatening the use of force. So continue, Joe.
No, but basically, again, what Dan is saying is they're using the mob. They're an extension. The mob is an extension of the Democratic Party. It's a tool. And I just wish people would see that. And, you know, we were talking about this in some other segments on this show that just passed. And basically, like, I'm beginning to lose respect for people who support this because it's disgusting. It's clear to me. It's clear to Dan Crenshaw. I don't think he's being political. I just think he's being factual.
He's being honest.
He is. Because, again, the point he's trying to make is this. If you have a demand, like in Portland, to defund the police and you got it, your protest is over. But it's not over.
It's not.
And this is why last week on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online, we discussed the fact that if Joe Biden wins, there are some people who think that the violence is going to stop. No, it will continue. Know why? Because you're affirming the behavior. This is a revolutionary platform.
And the end is always the revolutionary overthrow of the United States economic system and our political system. That's why you made a very good point. They get what they want. You got defunding the police in Portland, or the police stand down, right? In Seattle, the same thing. It's stand down. What do? They get more violent. They haven't stopped. Like Bill Barr said, are you a peaceful protester if you're throwing a bomb inside of a federal building? They have not stopped. And they're not going to stop. And people of goodwill and people who have some sanity need to raise their consciousness. These are not people who are freedom fighters. If anything, what they're trying
Sadly,
to do...
people think that. This is the sickest thing
about it. If you think that these people are freedom fighters, then you have a screw loose. They are not fighting for freedom. They're not fighting against oppression. They are the oppressors. They're showing that. They're getting what they want, and they still are getting more violent. Why are we laying down to these people? Do you not like being American? Do you not like having freedom? It doesn't matter if today you say something that they agree with so they don't bother you. But what about tomorrow when you say something they disagree with? And then they do bother you. And then you're doxxed, or you get fired from your job, or they protest in front of your house like they did to the McCloskeys in Missouri, okay? Where these two people couldn't get the cops, so they had to go in and get their firearms to chase these hundreds of people away who broke through a wrought iron gate to get to their home and then threaten them. So today you might say, well, I don't say these people are not a threat to me. I agree with them on most things. What happens when you don't agree with them? Well, then guess what? The same thing's going to happen to you. So why don't we all get sane about these revolutionaries, call them what they are, fight against them, put their revolution down, and then we could get back to some civil debate in this country. But until then, we have a lot of trouble.
Because it's not about debate, because their policies stink. Defund the police is a horrible idea. And anyway, that's a means to an end. They're weakening the foundation of the country, so the government sweeps in and puts socialism in the place of capitalism. That's ultimately what they want. They want the agenda of the Beto O'Rourke's, the Pete Buttigieg's, the Bernie Sanders, and they're putting it in the wrapping paper of Joe Biden.
And you have every constituent group covered, by the way. You see what you just said, by the way? Okay, you have every member, every group inside their so-called coalition, okay? Is there Pete Buttigieg? What are you going to get? Ram down your child's throat, not yours, because they know that they can't convert you. They want to convert your children to the LGBT agenda, okay? What did Beto O'Rourke said? Hell yeah, I'm going to take your AK-47. Hell yeah. Says they want to do, we're not trying to confiscate weapons. We're going to do a government buyback program. Right, and what happens if you don't sell your gun back to the government? The government's going to come in and take it. So who are you kidding? So it's confiscation of guns. It's the radical gay agenda that they're going to ram down your throat. Take Kamala Harris, radical abortion agenda. Bernie Sanders, the economic agenda. They got all their constituent groups covered. That's who's going to be in his cabinet. That's who's going to be pulling the strings in his cabinet. And here's the question Joe and Joe are asking. Do you want all that? Now, some of you do.
But, you know, the majority of the Democrats don't. And that's why we're here, frankly, to try to put a light through this fog, put a light through this darkness. That's why Mike Church is here. That's why Rick Barrett's here. That's why Aaron Barker is here. Because, frankly, I think they're doing this in the darkness of night because they know that the majority of the American people, even the majority of the Democrats, why do you think Joe Biden beat Bernie Sanders in the primary? Because the American people were not buying Bernie Sanders' platform.
Well, that was something in fairness, that was something, you're right, but that was something that the Democrat establishment, like Clyburn in South Carolina, that's something that they saw. They said, this guy Sanders, if we let him go, he's not going to beat Donald Trump. The only shot, and again, it's only a shot, that they have a beaten Donald Trump is Joe Biden, okay, at least in their thinking, okay? But what did they do with Sanders? They said, Bernie, you're 80 years old. Back out. We'll get Joe. Maybe he could beat Trump, but you can't. But you're going to have all the input you want with the platform.
And he has. And he has.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And in $7 trillion in new outlays. Read the 110-page document. It's basically a joint document written by Sanders and Biden. You could read it. Sanders got a lot of that, the majority of that.
And if it wasn't for conservative social media, nobody would know about that document. Mainstream media is not going to broadcast it.
No way.
Mainstream or social media leftist sites, they're not going to broadcast it. Like you said, in the dead of the night. Can I give an example to the people about what you just said? Remember something, when you think that every Democrat is for the LGBT agenda, if that was the case, why did Governor Murphy, in the midst of coronavirus, supposedly in a hotspot, all right, during George Floyd and the coronavirus, why did Murphy and the New Jersey State Assembly, why did they pass an all-inclusive LGBT agenda for the public for K through 12? Because they know that even their own, the people that vote for them, Democrats in New Jersey, are going to say, listen, I don't want that. Okay, I don't want that, and would have rebelled against that.
And we've covered stories about protests in Trenton. This is New Jersey. We're not talking about a conservative state.
Right. So they did that in the middle of the night. In other words, literally in the middle of the night, because they had George Floyd covering them and COVID covering them. Okay, and they ran that through because even in New Jersey, they know how radical that is. Even in New Jersey. Okay. So they have to do these things clandestinely. And they think that they're going to dupe us all. They're trying to now, supposedly there's not going to be any debates. Okay? There's going to be no convention. There's going to be no debates. It's just going to be straight up. How much can they cheat? And hopefully that cheating will get Biden across the finish line. That's what they're hoping for.
Well, that's up to you, good people of America.
Got to see through it. If you're afraid, please get this. If Donald Trump was afraid to debate Joe Biden, I would be the first one to say Donald Trump has something to hide. Trump's not the one afraid to debate. Joe Biden and his puppet masters are. They don't want to debate. You want to know why? You talked about the light of day. In the light of day, people are going to see Joe Biden getting trounced by Donald Trump, and they know they can't have that. So what do? Well, unless he releases his tax returns, we're not going to debate him, and there needs to be a fact checker there. Well, who's going to fact check you? Who's going to fact check Joe Biden? So you see what they do? That's what they do. They don't want to have a debate. Imagine this. We've had debates going back to Lincoln Douglas. Okay, we've had debates going back a very long time. Again, the way they try to just change things. Debates are an institution in this country. All right, and they've torn that down. And they said, we are not going to debate. If people don't see them for the shady, scamming liars that they are, then maybe this country be damned, Joe. Hopefully people wake up.
And if you do see them for who they are and you vote for them, I'll be honest with you, I feel sorry for you because you're in a bad place. Again, I'm losing respect for people who are clear-eyed and still support this mob. Well, because it's just that, it's a mob.
It's a mob. We mentioned her, and we're not bashing her, okay? We're not. But Lizzie Rizet, she converted from Pentecostalism or evangelicalism to the Catholic Church. She took a very big chance, that young lady, because she had a big evangelical following. She lost a lot of friends because that's one thing evangelicals don't like is when you go into the Catholic Church, okay? I respect her for that. She has not gotten it through her head that this is a party that she cannot vote for. Now, she's young, and I'm not disparaging her in any way. She needs to have her consciousness raised. This party is evil, Lizzie. And I would say this to her and people like her, okay? This party is evil. Can the Republicans do better? Joe and I say that on the show all the time. They could do so much better, particularly on economics, okay? But on life, on just basic sanity, okay? No, Donald Trump is the guy you really need to vote for because this party, as Joe and I are illustrating, they have gone insane. I think it's the line in Apocalypse Now where the general is presenting this mission. The horror. Well, that line too. But the general horror is presenting to Captain Willard, Martin Sheen's character. He's saying that he's presenting him with the case of Colonel Kurtz, and he's laying it all out in his last line to him. And very honestly, he has gone insane. Yes, that line applies to the Democratic Party. They have obviously gone insane, and good people, the 22 million pro-life Democrats for life, Lizzie Rizet, many people like them. Get it straight. Donald Trump is not going to destroy this country, and you might not like him, but the alternative is voting for them, and they have stated that they're going to destroy this country. You need to get that through your head. So anyway, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. We're marching along into the breach. We're dodging bullets. We got flamethrowers coming at us. They got mortar shells going over our head, but we're marching forward. Okay, always on air and always online on the Crusade channel. The last live radio station standing. Our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Joe, where are we headed? Oh, I think I know where we're headed. A reason why we need to vote for Trump.
We're going to Milwaukee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong story, but we'll get to that one. Go ahead, Joe.
Beloved black activist, Trump supporter, shot dead in Milwaukee. Last week, Bernie Trammell was shot and killed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported that the 60-year-old Trammell was shot dead at 12:30 in the afternoon, in front of the building that housed his shop on East Wright Street. Inside, now get this, people. Inside the shop, I think this is very interesting, there were signs in support of Black Lives Matter and the re-election of President Trump.
Interesting dude. I mean,
I hear you.
So
The New York Post reported that Trammell was known for carrying handmade signs through the streets of Milwaukee reading "Vote for Trump 2020." Trammell's Trump support angered some to such a degree that someone regularly followed him around to counter the support for Trump. Trammell ran Expressions Journal for years. Get this, Joe. This is also interesting about this gentleman. That included posting videos to YouTube, and the videos often centered on calls to repentance.
I saw one of those. So like he's, obviously he's got a political position, but if he's out on the street corner, he's yelling repent. That kind of speaks volumes about the guy.
The Republican Party of Wisconsin, the chair, Andrew Hitt, is calling for a federal investigation in Trammell's death. Hitt said, and get this, and this is the point of this story, no American should fear for their personal safety because of where they live or their political affiliation.
Now, doesn't this speak to what we said earlier about people who think, well, I agree with them on some things, so I'm not a threat to them? Mr. Trammell had Black Lives Matter signs in his store, in his storefront. That doesn't matter because he had Donald Trump support signs for supporting Donald Trump in the same store. He spreads a Christian message of repentance, okay? And because of those things, they shot the guy.
In the middle of the day.
In the middle of the day. How brazen is that? I don't even think gangsters do that. They at least wait till the nighttime, okay? That's what they did. Why? So if you're in the middle and you think you might agree with them on some things and disagree with them on others, well, you got a bullet with your name on it too from them, because you have to agree with them on everything. We saw that. Tulsi Gabbard is a leftist. She all of a sudden became a right-wing conservative because she disagreed with them on a couple of things. She wasn't even welcome on that stage. I think she had maybe some question about abortion or so. She's pro-choice, all right? But she had some question about late-term abortion. That's it. She said something about the LGBT, 20 years ago, okay? Right off the stage, that's it. Oh, she's a leftist, but not a good enough leftist. Not like Pete Buttigieg. He's a real leftist. He likes to kill babies right up till they're born. He doesn't care about teaching a 5-year-old how to have anal sex. That's Pete Buttigieg. He's with us, and we're with him. We love Pete. But this poor guy got shot, Joe.
And here's the thing. This is the party that you support. There's too many people that are involved in this tribalism, whereas Tucker Carlson said that religion is politics is their religion. You have to see this for what this is. This happened. This man was killed because he supported Donald Trump publicly, and he was murdered.
Remember what we said earlier about them softening us up by many actions? This is one of them. This is meant by them to instill fear. They pick a black man who obviously supports Black Lives Matter, but disagrees politically with them and certainly disagrees religiously with them. If he's preaching repentance, he's talking about Jesus Christ, okay? And they're saying, this guy agrees with us on a couple things, and we put a bullet in his head. Imagine what we'll do to you now. Shut up and stay home on election day and don't vote for Donald Trump, because if we find out about it, you're next. Isn't that what they're doing? Am I being hyperbolic by saying that?
And this is what I'm saying. I'm beginning to lose respect for people that support this. You see, even if you're a person of goodwill and consider yourself a Democrat, you should basically be vocal. You should be vocal, and you should say, I don't support that, my friend. That's not what America is about. You are free to believe what you want. You are free to support politically what you want. Sadly, a lot of people have bought into what Rob Reiner has been basically shoving down the throats of America, what Hollywood has been saying, what MSNBC is saying. They're basically saying, if you vote for Trump, you're a racist, you're a hater. That's the narrative. They put you in a bucket, they vilified you, and you bought it. And you have, in many cases, people be like, oh, that's a shame that man died. But you know something? We can't have Donald Trump as the president. Just like that woman who accused Joe Biden of sexually assaulting her. We covered this, a New York Times op-ed. A woman basically said, I know Joe Biden sexually assaulted her. He was a dog, but I'm voting for him anyway.
Let's go, Joe.
You see, many people are doing the exact same thing. They're like, yeah, this guy, he was supporting Donald Trump. He was a black man. Okay, he also supported Black Lives Matter. Okay, he was for repentance. That's kind of a cool thing. But he supported Donald Trump. We can't have that. Oh, he was murdered. I'm not for that. Are you voting for Joe Biden? Sure I am.
Sure I am.
No way.
And there's going to be more dead bodies and no cops doing anything about it if Joe Biden is in control of the executive branch, which controls the Attorney General, the Justice Department, the FBI. Okay, Joe Biden is going to do nothing about it, and there's going to be more dead bodies. So when it's an obvious hate crime,
it is a hate crime.
This is a hate crime. This is a black man that was killed because of his beliefs, his political support for Donald Trump. So I guess that's his political beliefs. He thinks Trump is worthy of his support. This is a hate crime. That means it's covered under federal legislation. This is what conservatives were saying back then when it comes to hate crimes. Hate against whom? See, they want to have it where if you kill a homosexual, okay, somewhere in Alabama.
And you shouldn't.
Of course not. All right, but that's a hate crime. But killing Burnell Trammell on the streets of Milwaukee at 12:30 in the afternoon, well, that's not really a hate crime. Why? Because he supports Donald Trump.
And does his life matter?
No. Evidently.
Where is his gold coffin? You gave George Floyd a gold coffin. He was murdered. Well, so was this man. He was murdered. Where's his gold coffin? Where's Joe Biden going to his funeral?
Yeah.
Where's Al Sharpton? Where's Al?
Right.
No one cares.
This is why they hate conservative.
No one cares.
You're right. This is why they hate conservative social media and conservative talk radio, because it's only on places like the Frontline with Joe and Joe and many, many, many others, thank God, who have big voices and big followings that are saying things like this. This is where they need to be called out. They need to be called out and say your hypocrisy is disgusting. Okay, that you're not going to, let's say, investigate this murder as a hate crime of Burnell Trammell, but you won't investigate every other crime when it comes to people who victims that you happen to agree with. But obviously, this guy's life doesn't matter. All you middle of the road people out there, by all means, if you want more of this, then please go ahead, vote for Joe Biden. In the meantime, I'll be in confession, getting ready to die, because that's what's going to happen, or that's what can, and we're not exaggerating. Burnell Trammell's a black man who supported Donald Trump and Black Lives Matter, and they shot him. What do you think they'll do to Joe Resinello and me if given the opportunity? I don't think I need to give you the answer to that.
Let's go to Seattle. This is also an interesting story, and it's an interesting statement from the chief of police, who happens to be an African-American woman. We've covered her on the past shows. Her name is Carmen Best. This is what she basically advised the city business owners. She said, city business owners and residents, the local police will, I'm not making this up, will not risk their personal safety to protect your property. After a ban issued by the city council of less lethal tools, such as pepper spray for the purposes of dispersing crowds to control rioters. This is a quote from the chief. There are riots, and the city council banned the use of pepper spray and other crowd control agents for the police. So now we have no ability to safely intercede to preserve property in the midst of a large violent crowd. I'm going to give you the Jersey short version of that. You are on your own.
You're screwed.
That's the version. She should have just said that.
And the Newark version is you're screwed, cuz.
Well, there you go.
And that's what it is. And what is Carmen Best doing? She's basically saying the city council and the mayor are taking away my cops' ability to control crowds, so they can't even use pepper spray, to use that example. Therefore, the cops are not going to risk their lives for your property or for you, even as you in your person. So you could be attacked. The cops can't do anything about it because our handcuffs are on us. Now, I blame somebody like Carmen Best because how is the police union not getting involved in this?
They should all protest.
Right.
See, the police union
should be on the side of the cops and coming out and saying, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. You're telling us that for crowd dispersal, we can't use pepper spray? Are you nuts? What are we supposed to do? Walk into the crowd and just use our hands? Well, then what's the sense of being a cop? The whole reason why they're afraid of cops is because cops are armed. See, they have guns, they have pepper spray, they have mace, they have all sorts of, they have tasers, they have all sorts of things that can disperse a crowd.
And they should have them.
That's what cops do. I'm supposed to feel not in an ordinary stop. This is where I'll agree with some of the nonsense that cops, do, and where we need to put an end to it. But in an ordinary circumstance, if I'm committing a crime, I'm supposed to be afraid of the cop. I'm not supposed to be not fearful of the cop. I'm supposed to be afraid of him. Why am I afraid of the cop? Number one, because I told you before, and the good people on the Crusade channel, I want him to look like McCloskey from The Godfather. I want a big, ugly Irish cop who might give me a beating or smash my face in if I'm committing a crime, as he did to Michael Corleone. And I want him to be armed because I need to be afraid of him. You know what that does? It makes me not want to commit a crime. See, that's kind of simple, criminal, what would you call it? Criminal theory.
Well, no,
if you don't want people to commit crimes, they need to be fearful of the law, and they need to be fearful of law enforcement officers.
People like this whole defund the police. This is all about liberal rich people who live in communities where there's no crime, who are basically pushing this. Because any person that's lived in a normal community or have been around the block knows that you need the police. There are people on this earth, and they're in every community. The only reason why they don't commit crime is because they know that if they get caught, they have to pay a fine or will go to jail. If they know they will get away with it, they will do it. That's just being a person who's an adult and has been around the block.
Right.
That's why there are police. And first of all, that's not why they're defunding the police. We know that. They're weakening the structure of America to have the government swoop in and bring socialism, the government to the rescue, and you become a slave.
Well, they do need a national police force to do that, and that will basically become the FBI on steroids, so that they do away with all local law enforcement, and the FBI, and even if they can't do away with it all, the FBI and federal law will supersede all local jurisdiction. So the FBI can go in anytime they want, and they can move the local law enforcement to the side, because that's one of the, they need. If you what you said is correct. They want to bring in socialism, but because there's going to be a tremendous amount of reaction against that, they need a national police force. Look at what happened in Michigan. The Michigan 4 counties, the sheriff said, we're not imposing Governor Whitmer's orders. We're not going to enforce those orders. Well, you can't have that if you're a socialist. You need good, willing cops that are going to go in and enforce what the socialists and the oligarchs want. Having said that, we're going to take a quick break before we go into our last segment. You're listening to The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello weigh into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Please find Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube at The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff, and drop a couple bucks in our GoFundMe campaign. You'll find it on GoFundMe at Support the Frontline with Joe and Joe. So we'll finish up the conversation, and we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court on the other side of the break. Welcome back, everyone, to The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello, and we are deep into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone number is 844-527-8723, and our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. So Joe and I are constantly hammering on the need to vote for Trump. As we said a million times, you're probably tired of hearing us saying it, okay, because of judges. Have they all been great? We pointed out on this show. Not all have been great. Some of them have not. But as a basic operating idea moving forward, what we say is, I'd rather have 95% of Trump's good judges or Trump's judges be good and on our side than 100% of the left's judges that we know are going to take away our freedoms. But the one thing is about establishment Republicans and how Republican Party needs to be reformed, and they need to start being responsive to us, is the current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who was given to us by another establishment Republican, George W. Bush. Having said that, I'm going to hand it over to Resinello.
As Joe said, I mean, if there's one thing Americans have learned from the Supreme Court in 2020, it's this. There are no guarantees.
Tell me about it.
Even now, after a slew of bad decisions, conservatives wanted to believe that when it comes to religious liberty, even Chief Justice Roberts couldn't get that wrong. Well, think again. When it comes to siding with the Constitution, even Vegas will tell you don't bet on Roberts. Why do I say Vegas? When Nevada's governor, Steve Sisolak, decided to open casinos to thousands of people but cap church attendance at 50, the lawsuits almost wrote itself. As far as First Amendment violations go, experts thought this is textbook.
Doesn't it seem that way?
Senator Josh Hawley, who's a friend, well, he's not a friend. We always talk about him on the show. He's someone to keep an eye out for. He argued on Washington Watch. This is what he said. The Constitution of the United States gives churches and the right to worship a special status. So imagine everyone's surprise, including the liberal media's, when this case was fast-tracked to the Supreme Court for emergency action, and the liberal majority refused to intervene.
Key word there. You wouldn't think you would include Chief Justice John Roberts with the phrase liberal majority. He's not only a swing vote. He has become on major issues that are relevant, particularly to Catholics and other religious people in this country, on life, on marriage, on definition of what sex is. Okay. And now on religious freedom, he has become a reliably liberal vote. That's what he's become. So even with Obamacare, we said when he stabbed us in the back on that one and he rewrote the law, he did the same thing recently. Unfortunately, in one of those cases, Gorsuch joined them. But then Gorsuch on this particular case, he said it's okay to shoot craps, but it's not okay to go to church.
Well, basically, they said to the absolute astonishment of everyone, Roberts and the other liberal justices decided that casinos should have more freedom to operate than the houses of worship legally protected by the Constitution. And I invite you all to read the dissents by Alito and Gorsuch. They basically said in so many words, they tried to understand how anyone, let alone 5 members of the Supreme Court, could justify the right to play craps over the free exercise of religion. In fact, Gorsuch said this in so many words. He said, this case is simple. That's what he said.
Isn't it, though?
It is.
Even in New York, Gary Sharp, District Court Judge Gary Sharp, rebuked Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio. Straight up. So you have not justified for this court why it's okay to have all these different gatherings and all these different businesses open, but you're shutting down or capping what religious people are able to do. Even Gary Sharp, okay, and I don't know his politics. I don't know who appointed him. But it's a federal district judge in New York who heard that case, came down on the side against Cuomo and de Blasio. This is John Roberts. This court, I remember back in 2005, his court was supposed to be a fulfillment of a promise that George Bush made to the conservatives who voted for him. What has Judge Roberts become? He's become no better. He's become no less of a turncoat than Sandra Day O'Connor, than David Souter, than Anthony Kennedy, all nominated by Reagan and Bush, Papa Bush. Okay, George Bush did the same thing, and we have to recognize Roberts for what he is, which is a liberal who's not going to be on our side on all of it, by the way. Okay, whether it's LGBT, whether it's abortion, whether it's religious freedom, on all of it, he has shown himself to be our enemy. He is no better than Ginsburg, Kagan, and Sotomayor and Breyer on these things.
Well, he's not going to make waves.
But Joe, this is going beyond that. I know what you're saying is going beyond that. Okay, this is telling conservatives, F you. It goes beyond that. But you're right. You're right. I agreed with you, and I still agree with you. In other words, he is an institutional man. But does that mean if you're an institutional man, you only vote with the left? That's what he's doing, or at least he's trying to present himself.
Well, I don't understand this. To be honest with you, I agree with Gorsuch, and I invite you to read the dissents again from Alito and Gorsuch. This is a simple case. I mean, let's break down the actions of Nevada. Why do they want the casinos open? Because of revenue.
Money.
Nevada is a wasteland without Vegas. Vegas is a source of revenue. It's like the Jersey Shore. Murphy has issue with the churches. He put all types of rules. The bishops basically capitulated along with the rules. Some of it is valid because there's old people who go to church. I get it. But at the same time, the church is autonomous from the government. Again, the church, I'm not criticizing because I'm not in their shoes. There's lawsuits. There's a lot of things. I'm just stating facts. The point of the matter is this. There's rules for voting. They want to have us vote by mail. The Jersey Shore's open.
Yeah.
The boardwalk's packed. You go to the beach. The beach is packed. What's the problem?
There's a lot of old people down there. A lot of old people down the Jersey Shore.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, it's a double standard. And Nevada, clearly, they want the casinos open because it's revenue. They need the revenue. There's nothing that goes on in Nevada outside of Vegas.
Right.
Why would you be there other than to sweat? In plain English, it's a desert. But they're creating a double standard. It's clearly unconstitutional. I don't even think you have to go to law school to figure this out, that there is a double standard. They give the double standard to Black Lives Matter. De Blasio was very clear. He said, well, listen, this is a different situation. These people have suffered for 400 years. We got to cut them a break here.
So let them die from COVID.
I know you want to go to church, but listen, he's basically saying your protest trumps the Constitution. That's what you're saying.
Did Murphy say the same thing?
Absolutely.
Murphy said, I couldn't imagine, talking about the protesters, I couldn't imagine these people stay at home. I couldn't imagine telling them to stay home. Well, you can imagine telling me to stay out of my church? Are you smoking crack, Governor Murphy? Which maybe you are.
And now Steve Sisolak of Nevada is saying the same thing.
Yep.
I need your money. So come to my state. But I'm not letting you go to church because I'm looking out for your best interest.
Right.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. But the old lady who's in the casino, 80-year-old lady, dropping the Social Security back into the slot machine. So you're letting her potentially get COVID and lose her money, okay? Portion of which is going to come into your state coffers, but that's okay. She could die, all right? And you're not going to do anything to try to help her, but you're going to help us poor, uneducated religious people, because we're the Catholic Church that survived plagues and famines and attacks and all sorts of things for 2,000 years. You don't think we could survive COVID? Let me tell you something, Mr. Governor Sisolak. We're not only going to survive COVID, I promise you, we're going to survive you. But can I go in a different, well, not a different direction, but pick up on this? Because people always say that, or once in a while people say, well, Joe, you do a lot of ranting. What about a solution? Well, I got one for you. And I got the guy who's going to bring us solutions, Joe Resinello. And he's a guy we mentioned a million times. In fact, Joe just mentioned Senator Josh Hawley. Okay. Now, see, he is a conservative Republican that's got his head on straight. I wish he was the template for future, and I hope he is. Okay. I pray he is, for future Republicans. Because why? He is, again, he's not in the Catholic Church. He is Christian. So we pray that he comes into the Catholic Church, but he talks an awful lot like a Catholic. Okay. He's pro-life, unabashedly pro-life. Okay. He is for work. He's for the free market, but he's for workers' rights. Okay. And protecting workers. He's for trade barriers that are going to protect us from predators like China. or getting taken advantage of through a deal worked 25 years ago through NAFTA by Canada and Mexico. So we don't get taken advantage of, bringing back our manufacturing. All these things Josh Hawley is right on. That's why a lot of the right-wingers don't like him, because their Chamber of Commerce that we covered last week, their Chamber of Commerce type Republicans who want to bring in foreign workers when you have 10 million, 12 million Americans that are out of work. Josh Hawley gets it. He ought to be the face of the Republican Party post-Trump. We are hoping he is. But can I read something he said?
Go.
All right. Now, this is from, we were referencing a couple articles that were written by Tony Perkins. Tony Perkins with the Family Research Center, okay? Tony Perkins is a good guy. Obviously, he's fighting on the side of life, on family. We don't agree with him theologically, but we can leave that aside for the moment. We have common cause with this. So Tony Perkins is right, and he says, if there's any comfort to be had from 2020's miserable string of Supreme Court rulings, that conservatives aren't going to take the next vacancy lying down. So after that, this is what we were talking about with Roberts, okay? So after years of taking judges at their word, Senator Josh Hawley says it's time to play hardball. And I think he's exactly right. What have Joe and I been saying for months? As long as all you good people on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, what have we been saying for months? Please get in the gutter with the left. Start playing, taking the gloves off. This is a bare knuckle brawl, okay? This is full contact football. It's not flag football. Get in the gutter and start playing the game the way they play. Here's a quote from Josh Hawley, okay? I don't want private assurances from candidates, Hawley insisted. I don't want to hear about their personal views one way or another. I'm not looking for forecasts about how they may vote in the future or predications. I don't want any of that. I want to see on the record, as part of their record, that they have acknowledged in some forum that Roe versus Wade as a legal matter is wrongly decided. Do you see how crystal clear that is on the part of this conservative Republican, letting the left know we're tired, and letting the right know too, the Lindsey Graham Republicans who just basically rubber stamped Elena Kagan and Sotomayor and the rest of them. He bragged about that. Remember, I voted for Kagan and Sotomayor. Tell him Lindsey said hola. Remember that with the Kavanaugh hearing? Now he brags about it, and I applauded Lindsey Graham in that exchange, okay, because he let the left have it. But Mr. Graham, now Josh Hawley, Senator Hawley is letting you have it. Stop with the personal, are you personally opposed? No. And what he's really saying is, if you voted for Roe versus, or if you voted for Roe versus Wade, or you support it, then your whole judicial philosophy is in question.
Isn't that what he's saying? Because he's saying it's a legal matter.
Yes.
And it was wrongly decided. You see, that's the key thing. And there are other people like Clarence Thomas who agrees with him.
Yes.
It's a legal matter. It's not a personal matter. Hawley goes on. This is what he says. He says it's time.
This is great, by the way.
Oh,
this is, please, all you Crusade Channel listeners and anybody who's going to be listening to the show when we post it on social media, please understand, this is about as crystal clear as you could get. When we look to, and I'm going to say it one more time, we look at leaders in America, especially young leaders in America, get rid of the Republican old guard, get some young blood in there like Josh Hawley. Please listen to what Joe is about to quote from Josh Hawley, because this is encouraging for us as conservatives. Go ahead, Joe.
He says, it's time that we ask the question that's fundamental to a judge's judicial philosophy. And Roe was an unabridged act of judicial imperialism. It's also a moral outrage, one of the worst decisions ever handed down by the United States Supreme Court. It belongs with Dred Scott and Plessy versus Ferguson as decisions that have wounded the soul of this nation. And I want to know from any individual judge nominated to the United States Supreme Court whether they are able to recognize the illegitimate nature of Roe v. Wade as a constitutional matter. If it's not there, he warns, if there's not evidence, I will not vote.
How crystal clear is that? Because what your view, see, when you look at Roe versus Wade, let's break it down a little bit. We only got about 10 minutes left. Let's break it down a little bit for the good people on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online. Roe versus Wade, the right to an abortion was made up because Harry Blackmun and other Supreme Court justices found a supposed right to an abortion under the right to privacy. But it was completely made up. Okay, it didn't have any legal basis whatsoever. They made it up out of the whole cloth, and it's been the law of the land since. And then, unfortunately, again, because of disgraziad, turncoat Republican nominees to the Supreme Court, like Sandra Day O'Connor, like Anthony Kennedy, okay, what happened? It was upheld in Casey versus Pennsylvania, or Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Okay.
The reason why, Joe, they're culture warriors. You see, it's like with Roberts when it came to Obamacare. That was, I thought, a clear-cut case.
Should have been.
But you see, they are cowards, and they become part of the culture. See, a judge should remove himself. That's what a judge's job is. You see, I don't want conservative judges. I want constitutionalists. You see, I'm not interested in partisanship on the court. All I ask is, I believe in the Constitution. I want you to interpret it as it's written. I did not elect you. You are not there to legislate from the court. It's that simple. It's like Catholicism. You did not raise yourself from the dead. One man did, Jesus Christ. He founded one church, and his church is the church I belong to. It's the golden source, as I would call it in corporate America when I'm looking at data. I want to see the golden source. Well, Christ founded one church, and I belong to it. And he's God, and I listen to him. Well, when it comes to the Supreme Court, all I ask is that the judge interprets the Constitution as it's written. It's one of the greatest documents ever crafted, and I am not the only person that have said that. Many people a lot smarter than me have said that. It is a masterpiece, and the founding fathers were brilliant. Why are we trying to recraft it? Why? Because we're cowards.
But here's the thing. I mean, everybody, all conservatives have known this for a very long time. This is not a recent development. This goes back to FDR. The whole leftist agenda cannot pass constitutional muster with a sane Supreme Court, meaning a court and judges that do what Joe said, which is, you see, like Obamacare is a perfect example. Obamacare, you could liken that to any FDR program that was rejected by the court originally, but after he got done stacking the court, he was able to get it through. And it did pass constitutional muster because you basically have politicians on the court rather than judges. Same thing with John Roberts. What do? They don't accept their own role as being interpreters of the law. They then become a super legislator, which is what you expect from the left. And then they change the law then to make it constitutional. That's what Roberts did with Obamacare. That's what happened recently with the Bostock case versus Clayton County. They changed the law. They changed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to suit their decision that they were going to come up with. So conservatives have known for a long time that, and have been saying this from the rooftops for a very long time, and on conservative talk radio and in any place they could, is that the conservatives have given up on the Supreme Court, which they never should have done to begin with. Conservatives like Lindsey Graham in the Senate, so supposed conservatives, should have held firm against Elena Kagan and Sotomayor. Said, I don't agree with you on this, ergo I'm going to vote against you. Because the fundamental fact is that the left cannot get through their agenda with sane Supreme Court justices, with justices that do what you said. They need activists. Judge Robert Bork warned about this back in the 90s with his book, The Temptation of America, okay? The Tempting of America, which was the temptation of judges to be politicians. He said it, conservatives would say it, but politically speaking, conservatives don't grab their you-know-whats, put them on the table, and say, no, we're not going to allow you through. To say to a Kagan, I don't agree with you, I'm voting against you. And have every Republican and conservative do the same thing. That's the problem here. Everybody knows the issue, Joe. It's the political will to say, like Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake, did he vote for Kavanaugh at the end of the day? I forgot if he did or not.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
He was going to do it anyway. That was political theater crap and garbage.
Right. And then Susan Collins, okay, she voted for Kavanaugh. But the point is, why is there even a question, Senator Collins?
Because they're
Senator
basically,
Flake?
Because, Joe, they're playing to the people. It's a game. You see, it's all a game. They're playing to the masses. This is relativism at its worst.
At its worst.
It's relativism. You see, the Catholic Church, as well as the Constitution, believes in an absolute truth. All men are created equal and are equal under the law. Have we gotten that right throughout our history? No. But should we strive for it? Yes.
The left would say yes, but they're not in favor of that.
Of
And we're
course they're
seeing
not,
that now.
because if you take away life, which is what abortion is, you have nothing else. And now it's no longer a twisting of the truth. It's straight out in your face.
Right.
I don't care that your child is 8 months your wife is 8 months pregnant with your child in the womb. We can legally eliminate that child. I don't care that if a woman is attacked and is pregnant, we will not be able to charge that man in the state of New York with 2 homicides or 2 assaulting.
Right.
We can't do it. Is that pro-woman? I mean, this is the Democratic Party. All logic has been thrown out the window. This is relativism, and we must fight against it. A society cannot sustain itself with relativism. No society ever has in the history of man.
Can I just chime in there for a second? Remember
Sure.
something. We are dealing with this promotion of this relativistic mindset, particularly on morality in America, and we have been for a while. But make no mistake, the same people that propose and promote relativism now, oh, there's no truth. There's no truth. Joe, there's no absolute truth. You can believe in God. You can believe in Allah. You can believe in nothing. It doesn't matter because it's all true, which means it's all false. Okay. It's like it doesn't, logically speaking, it doesn't make any sense. But make no mistake about it. The same people who promote that now, when they gain the power that they want, there will be truth. And there will be no dissent from that truth. And you know what that truth will be? Anything the party says. That's what, because that will be now absolute truth. That will be dogma. That will be doctrine.
And we're seeing it.
All right. We are seeing it now. You cannot dissent. If you say make a universal statement, okay, yes, I believe in Black Lives Matter because I believe all lives matter. You are a racist. All you said was the truth. I certainly believe Black Lives Matter because I believe all lives matter. Isn't that a factual statement? Isn't that a true statement?
I would think so.
Okay. That, according to them, is not true, even though they're relativists now. And like you said, we're seeing it now. No, you have to say it this way. Okay, but you're being an absolute. So what? We have power. We'll cost you your job. Look at what happened to Bernard Trammell. He got a bullet put in his head in broad daylight. That's what they do. So they're relativists for now. They promote relativism now. But believe me, they're the biggest absolutists there are. They'll make sure that the truth that you will live by will be their truth, and you won't dissent from it. And that's true, Joe.
And that's the importance of putting good judges on the court. And that's Josh Hawley's point. We're looking for constitutionalists. Clarence Thomas is the model.
Yes.
He is the best judge that we have
in many
right
ways.
Now.
In many ways, I thought he outshined Scalia.
He
in many
is
ways.
The constitutionalist. We want people to interpret the document as it's written.
Mm-hmm.
That's who we want.
And vote against those, Senator Lindsey Graham and others, you vote against those who do not. That's what your constituents
and I got news
vote
for
you for.
If you vote for Joe Biden, God help us with regard to who he puts on that court.
Right.
It will be nothing short of a clown show.
If the Republicans, we got to go, but if Republicans retain the Senate and Biden gets elected president, if they don't close ranks and vote against every one of his judges, then I will never, ever say that I'm a Republican again. But we have to go. We have to end it there. Thank you for joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. And we were on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. You could stay in the chat room and chat away. It's the only social media out there worth actually socializing in at crusadechannel.com/chat. Please follow Joe and I on Facebook. Share all our interviews and videos with your friends. And also, please, it would be a great help. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're trying to build our subscriber base there. And if you're feeling a little bit generous, we have a GoFundMe campaign on the GoFundMe page at Support the Frontline with Joe and Joe. drop in a couple bucks. And as always, we do appreciate you keeping us in your prayers. And remember, till next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. So we'll see you later on in the week. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone number is 844-527-8723, and our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. We thank you all for joining us here. Please follow Joe and I on social media, on Facebook at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, on YouTube at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. More importantly, YouTube. We're trying to build up our subscriber base there. We only created the page about a month and a half ago. So if you could subscribe to us on YouTube, that would be a great help. And on any video you watch on YouTube, please hit the little like button. And just for our friends Paul and Kristen Chiach out there in Pennsylvania, I got my Angry Catholic t-shirt, okay? Thank you, Paul and Kristen, for sending it, because we're angry Catholics, okay? We're talking more about politics and culture, but nonetheless, we got a lot of things to be angry about. But we want to thank you all again for joining us. We got a great lineup for you all today. We have Tucker Carlson. He's, you got Barack Obama. I mean, the left, they just have to politicize everything. So John Lewis dies. Of course, they have to politicize his funeral. You have social distancing, that are ignored. Or the rules are being ignored by the politically woke. And the rules obviously are not applied equally. We got Facebook. We're going to be talking about Facebook and Google. They censored a viral video of a doctor or a bunch of doctors on Capitol Hill talking about things that, quite frankly, the big tech oligarchs don't like that people are talking about. So what do? They shut them down. We're going to get into that, too. We're going to talk about the buzzsaw known as our Catholic Attorney General, Bill Barr. All right. And the Democrats, CNN tried to pass off that the Democrats handled him. He handled them. Any objective person knows that. So we're going to talk about the lawless left. Dan Crenshaw had something to say about violent mobs. You had a guy, a black man, 60 years old, also in Milwaukee, I think it was, shot dead.
In the afternoon.
Shot dead in the middle of the day. Okay, where's the woke media when it comes to that guy? Does that black life matter? I don't know. You have Seattle telling residents and businesses basically you're on your own, and we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court. So as Joe and I always say, the left is teeing it up. Today's no exception. So Joe, where would you like to get started?
We got to start with a prayer, because all good things start with a prayer, and this is a good thing. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, never was it known that anyone who sought your help or sought your intercession was left unaided. Inspired by the